Do your homework?
Here it is. I don't know. That thing runs fine, and then Bob sits down there, and it just destroys it.
Everybody all right?
Yeah.
We have 7:33. We can all stand up and join us in flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, please join us in a moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nations and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Thank you. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Here.
Councilmember Jedinak,
Here.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Here.
Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Sackett,
Here.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Here.
President Kelly.
Here. This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record and the Star Ledger, the official newspapers for the Township of Rockaway, on January 11, 2019. Notice was posted on the official bulletin boards in Rockaway Township. Number 6 is going to be the designation of Sergeant of Arms and the Township Code 2-15.15, I'm sorry, 2-5.15 decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant of arms at the council meeting. The sergeant of arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. I see in the back we have Officer Matos. You're going to be the designated sergeant of arms? And as well, thank you for your service, Officer Matos. Is the chief going to be here tonight, Mr. Mayor?
No, he's not.
On to 7, it's going to be approval of minutes. We can do it all in one blanket. You can say yes or no to A and B, yes to all, yes to A or B or no if how we go. So with that said, do I have a motion to approve all the minutes?
Motion. Second.
Mr. Jackson, second. Palumbo making the motion. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Approve A, abstain B.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes on A, abstain on B.
Councilmember Jedinak,
Yes to all.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes to both.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes to A, abstain on B.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes to A, abstain on B.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Yes to A and B.
President Kelly.
Yes to all.
We have 4 yeses, 4 abstentions on B.
And all 8 yeses on B, right? Or on A.
Yes. So B doesn't.
On the regular meeting minutes, we have 8 yeses. Motion carries. And on B for closed session, we have 4 yeses and 4 abstentions. Motion still carries. Well, there's no vote, so, right? I mean, the abstention is just not
Mr.
those.
Giacomo,
Mr. Yetrafano, do you have a comment on that? We have 4 yeses and 4 abstentions.
we don't have a majority vote, so we can't.
Council President, abstentions don't count. We discussed this in January, February of last year, and we received a memo from Mr. Yatrafano at that time stating the same. The motion definitely carried with 4.
In all fairness, Mr. Yetrafano, I don't have the memo
Neither do I.
at this time,
Yes, we did.
but I do remember that abstentions did not count as a vote.
We had it.
And as a resolution, I believe it's not the majority of the entire council, it's the majority of that vote. So if there's 4 yeses and 3 noes, it would still carry, rather than the majority of the 9 council members.
Who we missing? My recollection of the memo is that an abstention would count as a no vote.
Incorrect.
Thank you, council.
But in all fairness, Mr. Waters, please?
We do have a memo from you,
Mr. Water, please.
Mr. Yachafano.
Well, you're in the public, so I'll give you an opportunity when you come to the microphone.
It was addressed earlier this year.
Yeah, and I haven't
Last
looked at
year.
it since then.
That's okay.
Well, yeah, last year, sorry.
For the moment, we're going to say the motion carries. We have 4 yeses and 4 abstentions.
I'll find that memo.
Council President, if I may, the intelligent thing to do at this point, I would suggest respectfully, is to simply table the vote on the closed session minutes, and we can dig out the memo and decide this correctly for the next meeting.
But we already did the vote, so how could we table it?
You can make a motion to withdraw the vote.
No.
I don't think he's wrong.
Schmidt's lab.
What's that?
I do think he's
Council President, this is, we've been through this thoroughly last year. If you consult Robert's rules, you'll see the same thing.
Excuse me, sir. Why don't we just do it in all fairness? I don't have it in front of me, but rather than go
Then why don't we
back and forth,
make a motion to table?
if we can spend some time, I think we're going to make a motion to withdraw.
Council
We can-
President.
Excuse me, Mr. Jenny, please. And then we can re-vote on this, maybe even later tonight. We can find out afterwards.
Let's do it the right way.
So, in all fairness, Mr. Freelander, you want to make a motion to withdraw?
Yes, I make a motion to withdraw the vote
we
on
have-
the red.
I'll
on the
second
minutes
it.
closed.
For the closed session.
Do we have discussion?
Go ahead.
Council President, I believe the clerk has a copy of Robert's rules in her office.
I
Well,
would
we
I
can-
would rather not do
we-
this. I
we
would
can-
rather withdraw it.
We need to have a copy of it, and I recommend that you consult it and see that what we already hashed out last year is that the abstentions do not count, and that definitely passed.
They don't count, but you still need a majority vote.
Majority of those voting,
Not a resolution.
abstentions do not count towards
That's true.
And a passing vote would be a majority vote. It doesn't need to be a two-thirds vote, but you need to have a majority vote in order to pass the motion.
Anybody second my motion?
4 and 4, whether 4 don't count as a vote, you still don't have.
The motion was second, Council
Yeah,
President.
we're just doing discussion here. Gentlemen,
Okay.
is there any discussion you have, Mr. Jackson?
I second it.
You second it, Jonathan? No, we will.
I second the vote.
Mr. Quinn, second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quinn, second.
Do it the right way. Jesus.
Go ahead.
My question is,
Microphone.
my question on the discussion end of this is, are we going to look for that memo this evening before the end? Are we going to revisit this tonight?
Well, let's just see if time's permitting. I mean, we want to move through the agenda that we have here. We do have the open to the public session that's there. We got some other discussion of new business. In the meantime, maybe perhaps we can find that memo and get it there. If not, we can also readdress this and put it back on the agenda for a vote on April 9th. Worst
Okay.
case scenario.
Council President, we need to have a copy of Robert's rules at the meeting.
I understand that, but we're right
So
now.
can the clerk just simply go get the copy from
I don't
Robert?
think I have a copy in my office right now, so
That's
we can
okay.
move on.
Can you please do the roll?
To withdraw the
Now,
closed
this
session
is
vote.
the table.
No, we're going to
Oh.
withdraw the vote.
Withdraw, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak,
No.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
No.
President Kelly.
Yes. We have 2 noes, 6 yeses.
Yes.
I know the,
Motion to table this, withdraw this, Mr. Yatrafano is granted. And then maybe, if possible, Mr. Yatrafano, with your phone, do you have access to,
I won't be able to find it on my phone.
Mrs. Seeger, would there be a possibility of you being able to do that?
Depends on how far my exchange emails go back. Do you know when it was?
You know what, I don't, and I have the same problem on my own
Mine
Outlook.
doesn't all.
Yeah, mine doesn't either. Well, we'll see what we can do. If we can entertain it for tonight without too much inconvenience, that'd be great. If not, we can put it on the agenda for the 9th of April. Okay. Bob, do you have the list by chance?
Job, Matt.
Oh, he's got his whole binder.
Mr. Waters, please. Mr. Waters, I'm not asking to have a conversation with you from the audience, only just if you could just tone it down. That'd be great. Thank you. Before we go into the public portion of that, I just wanted to, maybe we can address something going forward. There's been a lot of discussion on Facebook, and I think amongst people in the audience and people in the on the internet and maybe within our administration. Many may have an idea of the order that we received on the 19th of this month, on March 9th, dealing with the Schmidt and Hollenbach versus Rockaway Township, MRS C 131-18. And a lot of the conversation that's been coming up is addressing about remedying what took place on November 27th and December 11th. And some of the comments that are on there are not accurate, and I actually attended the matter, and I don't see a lot of the individuals that were in the audience. There was only a few that were there. But during that oral argument that took place in front of our Honorable Judge Minkowitz, there was some discussion concerning the resolution to go into closed session. And if many of you had seen when I do a resolution to go in closed session, and I have amended the closed session resolution in the past, I've always stated the time that we're going to be in closed session, and hopefully an approximate time close to when it would be available for the public to review of those minutes of what took place in that closed session. What the argument came in there was just that, there was no notice to the public when we went into closed session on the 27th of November as well as December 11th. Even though we were going in there for collective bargaining, can't discuss what was in there yet, those conversations and questions that were going back, and we're talking a lot of money that was related to those negotiations with Council 6 and our police department and Superior and police officers, it took a lot amount of time to where it ran into the following day on both dates, the 27th of November as well as the 11th of December. However, the resolution that we had wasn't drafted by the council, and prior resolutions going into closed session years in advance was very minimum of what it was. Matter of fact, a lot of times I didn't even tell you what they were going into closed session for. But in early November, there was a couple of emails that we had that council members and some of our administration were addressing closed session resolution. And the closed session resolution that was created by our legal counsel, which what we used going into closed session on those meeting dates and before was deficient without having the notice of time going into closed session, as well as when the minutes would be available for the public to review. So one component of the judge's decision, which wasn't done orally at the time on the date that it was heard, but in his written decision, it addressed that there was potential technical flaws in that resolution to go into closed session. And it disenfranchised the public of not knowing how long we were going to be in there, to plan what you're going to do, if you're going to stay, maybe you come back a little bit later and whatnot. It wasn't an ill intent. And there was no discussion of what had happened with the resolution to go into closed session to the judge. That, this is what we've had. It's all been kind of somewhat folded upon the council, which is not true. So, with that being said, the order that we have now in front of us on the 19th, what some of you have received, it wasn't on e-courts to get it, so you had to get it through going to court or through somebody else, maybe, or through somebody that you know in administration. There was something to remedy or ratify what took place of all the actions of each of those days on December 11th, as well as November 27th. So there were some questions that were going on. Some members that are here, we had a member of our council, of our governing body, that had asked some questions about it too. But there's an issue that we have that maybe many of you don't know. I know that there's been some discussion about the legal thoughts of it and statutory requirements and whatnot, and moving forward. There's not an urgency to rectify or remedy everything that's there because we have 45 days to do so. However, there's an urgency within our administration to move this forward in a rapid pace. Most of what took place can be ratified and moving forward. Contracts, and we have resolutions that were going there. But there's one component which seems to be the focus of this, was the appointment of a member to be on this governing body. That was a selection of 3. Now, with that being said, because of the time frame of what's there under our municipal vacancy law as well as Title 19, you can potentially be time barred to be able to ratify that one particular action that took place. The committee has, the Republican committee, because it was a Republican vacancy, they have so much time to select 3. The governing body has so much time to choose from the 3. If we don't, it goes back to the committee, and if they don't choose, it could also go back to the council to select who they want, which the total of that lengthwise at a maximum level is 60 days. We're beyond that right now, so you're potentially trying to ratify something that is now time barred to ratify of its action. Now, we did receive a memo from our attorney, and there were some comments that were in there. At that time, there was no discussion about voidability and what took place on the 27th of November and December 11th. To even have a conversation or raise a concern of any action that took place, specifically one that may have been potentially time barred because of the municipal vacancy law and Title 19. There's also, and I'm not aware if anybody, I haven't seen this from anybody posting, but there's actual case law on that particular issue. Mr. Yatrafano, have you reviewed any case law on the matter?
Mr. Kelly, the matter is still pending litigation. The appeal period hasn't run.
I'm not talking about.
Unlike you, I'm not discussing it
Okay.
in open session.
Well, a lot of people are, and just so that people have an idea, there is a case that's out there that people should look at. And since everybody's been trying to draft around on the internet and whatnot, it's Carley versus the Borough of North Plainfield. It's a 2005 case of April, and it couldn't be more on point of the concern that we have here. So, rather than expedite this and try to have this happen overnight and have this resolution in a blanket approval of that, which could potentially put us maybe even exposing to more litigation. If there's an action that takes place and it's wrongfully applied, there could be another ground for having a prerogative writ to litigate or challenge what the council does. And, in all fairness, Mr. Jackson, I think it would be fair to actually review this by independent counsel, even for your own well-being as the council member and the vote that had taken place and the potential ratification of that. Because the concern also could be if we weren't allowed to, or not able or capable to ratify your position, and you continue to participate and vote and whatnot, could that potentially contaminate any vote following what we have now? So since we have the 45 days, I mean, you asked a question, so I want you to be able to
Yeah,
talk about it
I'd
too.
rather, just in the advice of counsel, not discuss this in public session.
Well, all right, well,
I trust the township attorney.
okay. But a lot of the members have been talking about it in public. You kind of
I haven't been talking about it in public. I sent the council an email based on an
And you
email.
did,
that
and the
came
other
out.
thing of that was you sent all of the council members of the discussion of that, which could also be in violation of OPMA. And that was the other concern I had that you had going on as well. Because you CC'd everybody.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware that that's a violation of OPMA.
You know, we've talked about it numerously, the mayor's been notified of that, but that's 10-4-8B. If you read that under meetings, you'll see. So.
That's okay,
In
thank
any
you.
event, I know. So I do have it on for closed session to talk about it, but I did want to address it because the public has not an idea of what takes place in closed session until those minutes are available of litigation that's there. So we do
Hopefully
have.
they're out timely and they'll be able to read it.
I'm sorry?
Hopefully the closed session minutes come out timely and they'll be able to read it and be informed.
Well, the litigation has to be over before they can finish the closed session minutes in a day on that particular issue. It'd still have to wait.
Yep.
Once we're allowed to have it, so it's not just on when the minutes are prepared.
Yep.
It's other things that surround it.
Yeah.
So, it may have answered some of your questions, maybe it created more questions for you, but I think that's important to address to the public prior to the open public portion, which many of you may have something to say about that issue. Is there anything you want to add, or anybody on this side wants to add? No? With that,
Council President, the resolution itself that we have on the agenda tonight for closed session,
yes.
my understanding is that it's been modified,
Yes.
It has, yes.
right? And so my question is, what are the modifications to the resolution for closed session this evening?
Mr. Gatrofano, is that something that you could answer? Just
Sure.
the changes of that resolution from what we had prior to what we have now.
Well, the real changes to the resolution, the acting clerk and I have occasionally modified these resolutions depending upon the matter. The resolution that I received, when I received it, I reviewed it. Item number 2, which specifies the reason for going into closed session. When I received it, said simply, stated the reason as litigation. I requested Ms. Clipperton add that the litigation was specifically the Schmidt and Hollenbeck matter.
Was that on the agenda, Mr. Yatrofano, or on the resolution itself?
On the resolution, you asked me about the resolution.
No, I'm just making sure, that's all.
Okay. Previously, we had added on prior resolutions the time within which the minutes could be available, and we added a time limit, and also added, in this case, a notation that in the event the reason for confidentiality existed beyond 45 days, the public would be advised appropriately. We provided, although I'm not going to get into it, I'm not going to break my own rule, but I disagree with you with the reasons for the action the judge took. I added in paragraph 4 a timing disclosure element for the closed session, and the proviso that if the closed session extends beyond that time limit, the council will recess the closed session and appropriately advise the public. And just because of what I perceived as a need to take action in one of the matters that was on the November 27th agenda, I also added another paragraph, which quite frankly probably should be on all matters going forward, or all resolutions going forward, and that is a simple admonition that the council may take action on the matter, which was the subject of closed session.
Now, are any components of that taken from the PAF resolution to go into closed session? I mean, PAF had basically a boilerplate resolution that many municipalities adopted for a closed session.
I don't know that. I've heard the name PAF, quite frankly. I don't know who that person is.
John PAF,
Okay.
doesn't ring a bell?
I've heard the name in connection with Oprah cases. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, I thought that it was provided
It's
to the,
provided to the council.
I couldn't hear that.
what's that?
It was provided to the council
When was that?
I think it was
Last
back in
fall.
October, yeah.
And who provided it to the council?
Mr. Schmidt.
I believe that was at the October 23rd meeting, following the meeting that Mr. Schmidt had with now Mayor Puzio, Township Attorney, Councilmember Sackett. Mr. Schmidt, I see your head nodding up and down. Sounds like I'm correct about that. You'll correct me at the public portion if I'm incorrect about that. Council President, so my understanding of the decorum.
No, go ahead.
Decorum. Decorum.
If you guys could please. If you guys could please. Okay. Go ahead.
Just be quiet until they stop.
Council President, so my understanding is that the title was changed. The litigation title in item 2 was added, and that items 3, 4, and 5 were added that were not previously a part of the closed session resolution template that the township has been using.
Correct.
And the clerk has been using a template, is that correct?
The clerk was using what was originally provided for last,
The clerk has been using a template for preparing these closed session
which
resolutions.
is now changed.
Is that
That's
correct?
Yes.
I'm asking.
I'm telling you, yes, that's correct.
And whatever Mr. Jedniak just said applies to answers that I would give, that's not correct.
No, I was just asking
I
if,
prefer to speak for myself.
no, I understand that. I just,
My question was for the clerk.
It was. And then,
And-
Mr. excuse me. And Mr. Yetrofano, when one of the meetings that took place, I actually modified the closed session resolution to include that. And I asked for your advice on that, and you said that you didn't have to change that too.
I have no idea what we're talking
I
about.
know, it's in the minutes, so
Council
it
President.
reflects
And we
itself.
just wasted another 15 minutes.
That's okay.
I do recall.
But it was just, you know what it is, Mr. Yetrofano, I just wanted to make sure that the public knew that these weren't things that were raised in the court matter that took place in front of Makowitz to make that ruling, and then to somewhat support what you stated in that memo. So again,
Council President.
moving forward, I'm going to go into the
Can I
public portion.
have a couple more items on this?
Can you make it quick, please?
Yeah. So, Council President, I think we all understand that we received a copy of that boiler closed session resolution template from Mr. Schmidt at the October 23rd council meeting. At that time, I was the council president. What the public may not be aware of, and other councils might not be aware of, is that following that meeting on October 23rd, at my direction, Acting Clerk Clipperton sent an email to Mr. Yetrofano that stated, "This is a resolution template that has been used for closed sessions this year. Does this meet all of the township's legal obligations for the council to enter into closed session?" Question mark. October 30th, that was sent, within a week of Mr. Schmidt providing us with that template. Mr. Yetrofano's response was, "Could you please find the closed session resolution we used when Ms. Best was the clerk for me?" The acting clerk provided that template. It's the same template that we used throughout the year. And then on November 5th, Mr. Yetrofano's secretary, Ms. Aguilar, sent a memo and draft resolution to the clerk for her to use moving forward. And so all the resolutions that you saw from November 5th forward were based on the template modified by Mr. Yetrofano's office, including the November is it 27th meeting, Mr. Council President?
November 27th, Mr.
Yes.
Perone was here, not Mr.
And the December 11th meeting. They both used the draft that was recently updated by Mr. Yatrafano, which the court found was not in compliance with the OPMA. Thank you, Council President.
There you go. With that being said, I'm going to open it to the public. I have Ms. Helberg. Go
Good
ahead.
evening.
Thank you for coming.
Tonight I come here as a parent, educator, and a community member, not as a Board of Education member. My first year teaching was when Columbine occurred. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So many tragedies continue to follow, and finally Sandy Hook broke me. Last year, shortly after Parkland, the school in which I'd worked at had a required lockdown drill that we had to perform over the course of a school year. It was unannounced. I froze just for a moment, then I realized that it was a drill. It wasn't the real thing. I had several students have a similar reaction, so I had to calm them down. That is our reality. At that moment, I was very grateful to have an armed officer on site in my school. Then all kinds of emotions surfaced because my own children don't have that same layer of protection. Today, my school had another unannounced drill, and all of my feelings resurfaced. The universe has a funny way of talking to you because I was deliberating whether or not to come and speak here tonight due to my position on the Board of Education. If this didn't happen, I don't think I would have been standing here talking to you, but it did, so I'm here. I am not here to speak for the Board of Education, but I feel compelled to share my experience, not to guilt anyone, not to point fingers, just to share my reality with you and state that is not just my reality, but the truth for our children in Rockaway Township schools. I ask for all of you to try to come together to find a way to take steps to get an armed officer in our schools, whether it be passing the resolution tonight or finding an alternate workaround so we can do this for our children. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Mrs. Helberg, if you could just come back up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you walk all the way back there. I think you attended the meeting that we had, a superintendent that was here to go over.
I was here, yes.
You were. I saw you in the audience that was there. And we had a budget meeting that took place that was portion of the police budget. And
watched
during
that.
that question that we had, because it's on for discussion for tonight, and I know Mr. Palumbo has a large amount of things to say tonight with regard to this, what the council is looking for and what other neighboring towns are doing, Wharton, Denville, Rockaway Borough, and Parsippany, they have Class 3, and for what we would pay for having an SRO or 2 SROs, we could almost fulfill the schools with having a Class 3 in each school. So this discussion that's taking place tonight in order to try to achieve what we can do to facilitate with security in the schools of each schools rather than just having one in one school and not the other 5 elementary schools. That's something that's there. Is that something that the board is interested in, is having
I can't speak for the board. I'm not here
Right.
in that capacity.
Right.
you as one going through drills and as a teacher?
I'm, like I stated, if that didn't happen this morning, maybe I wouldn't be here, but having an armed guard to some capacity, I would love the best, the luxury version of it, in all the schools, but I want to see something happen.
So, Council President,
Please, go ahead.
my question, if you could, is what school would be the most appropriate? What child is more important than the other? There's 6 schools, is my point.
Right.
I mean,
Not, yeah.
there are 6 schools in town. How do you, one school, how do you choose one school? I would like to see them in all schools.
Ideally, I would love that
Yeah.
as a parent.
Okay.
I'm not
No,
disagreeing.
I'm not saying you did. I mean,
Yeah.
you said officers with a plural when you said that. So that's why I'm asking, as a
I
parent,
understand.
and I'm talking to you as a grandmother of Rockaway Township students.
Correct.
So I understand what you're saying.
I
So
appreciate
that's what I feel.
Right.
That I am in your court, and I don't see where we pick one school. How do we say what children in what school are more important than the others?
I agree with that statement. I just think we need a stepping stone in a direction
Mhm.
and to start the
I agree.
conversation.
We
That's
need
all.
something done.
No sides.
No, this is
No.
nonpartisan, this is
Yeah,
nothing about that
exactly.
at
Yep.
all.
Nope.
There's no,
And after today, that experience, I was like, okay. I wasn't going to come and talk today, but that happened today, and it was a big deal.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you have something? Nance, I'm sorry, this is going to be a constant joke. I'll do the
No,
same with
sorry.
everybody.
Well,
That's all right.
after listening to Dr. McLaughlin, and also we had that Friday night budget meeting in which the chief was here.
I watched.
You watched, okay. And I guess you heard some of the questions of the chief, by primarily myself, Councilman Kelly, and Mrs. Smith, Councilwoman Smith, who's not here tonight. But I talked to some of the other towns, including Denville, Morton, Rockaway Borough, and none of them have in their middle school, they all have class 3s. But they also have class 3s in all of their schools. So, and a lot of it has to do with you're able, and I think we had discussed this, that with these class 3s, they're trained officers, seasoned officers, retirees, carry guns, excuse me. But by having, and the range anywhere from $30,000 a year to $40,000 a year, certainly about a quarter of the cost of what was presented to the council in the budget. That these officers were, again, just as trained in firearms, because they are former officers retired. But again, I think it can be done a better way. If the issue is this clause in the contract, well, we went through a negotiation session, I guess last year, administration, not the council. Maybe something can be worked out now with the FOP, because Wharton is represented by FOP, I think Denville's PBA. Maybe something can be worked out where we can get these class 3s, which I think is the most important thing, is the protection in all 6 schools.
Like I said, I would love to have the luxury and all.
Sure.
And I think there are merits for the other pieces too, because
Yeah.
they're also important.
Understand, but the class 3s are also, can be SROs, and they're not just limited
Right.
to carrying guns and being former officers. But I think the way to go is that way, and I think maybe the FOP, I can't speak for administration, I can't speak for the FOP, the Board of Ed, Council can work something out where we can get one in each school. And I think the law was enacted to give relief to these towns and boards of ed, excuse me, with regard to providing a seasoned officer in the schools without having to worry about pension payments and health and welfare payments. And so, and I think they would be just as effective,
Right.
not in just one school, but in all 6. So,
Can't argue with you.
No, we did, and you guys did have them. I mean, I have the old
Long time
contract
ago.
here, yeah, back in 2011, it expired. And the board had turned that down, actually, to do that,
wasn't
so.
on.
Yeah, it was prior to you. But it is something that we have on new business today.
Okay.
So if you, hopefully make the meeting kind of quick.
I appreciate.
And you can stay around and maybe throw some suggestions in as well.
Okay.
Great. Is there anybody else before I make her walk
Before I
away?
run.
No? Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for your service on the Board of Ed. Next on the list, we have Mr. Schmidt.
Good evening, John P. Schmidt, Gloucester State, New Jersey, County of Camden. I do have a prepared statement I'd like to read, but before I do so,
Can you pick that microphone up there, Mr. Schmidt? You kind of unthread the middle thing right there in the middle. There you go.
You have two hands.
How tall are you, Mr. Schmidt? 5'8", 5'9"?
there we go. Cool. Is this better?
That's, yeah.
Okay, before I read that, I just want to say, some cases the council and anybody may want to look at. Zimmer v. Castellano and Booker v. Rice, the Appellate Division of the New Jersey Superior Court, was asked to determine the legal effect of abstention. The specific question for the panel was whether the City Council has the authority to deem a council member abstention to be a no vote in order to create a tie vote that allows the mayor to vote. While the facts of each case differed slightly, the answer was the same. Abstentions do not count as a yes or no vote.
Thank you.
As this governing body knows, my first interaction with you was on the early morning hours of 9/15/18, when I wrote you a letter concerning the Open Public Meetings Act, and then later on 9/20 when I addressed you. Following that, I argued pro se in front of Judge Minkwitz against 8 paid government attorneys. And by the grace of God and the weight of case law in regards to OPMA prevailed, and not only obtaining a court decision declaring this governing body violated OPMA, but the first voided meeting in Morris County, and as far as I know, in the Morris Sussex vicinage. As I have said before, I wish you had listened, and I wish your former legally appointed attorney had listened. Is violating the law worth $400,000 plus per year? It wasn't then, and it isn't now. On October 22nd, 2018, I wrote to this honorable body a second time with additional concerns, and I spoke at the meeting on 10/23. I thank you for having the discussion you had on remediating the deficiencies of 9/20 and 9/26, but was disappointed, specifically in then Councilman Puzio and current council members Quinn, Sackett, and Freelander for voting no. And even more so with Councilman Puzio and the township attorney for having a meeting which was illegal, to which they had knowledge. On 10/23, I discussed a number of OPMA issues, and again on 11/16 called for compliance. I think between September to present, my motives have been the same: compliance with OPMA and accountability. I will add, I have been accused by some of being in the pocket of the township attorney, accused by some of having a conspiracy to assist Mr. Kelly. They are rumors and untrue. I have been about compliance. So here we are tonight, a week removed from a second OPMA ruling in less than 6 months, and the third this decade. As for the third one in 2012, none of you were involved with that case, except the council president, who was the plaintiff, and council member Quinn, who was on the governing body then, that failed to approve minutes for over 2 years. In regards to the court order last week, I would like to ask, did all members have the opportunity to read all court filings filed by both the township and myself and Mrs. Hollenbeck?
Say that again?
Did everyone have the opportunity to read all the papers?
We had the opportunity, yes.
No.
No?
No, we weren't provided with them before they were submitted to the court.
Oh, that's correct.
So the answer is
The
no.
council president, I don't believe the council received any of the court papers
No.
that were submitted to the court in the defense of the township.
I even asked Mr. Perone to do a certification that day because of some of the stuff that was not accurate.
Okay,
And as the current council president at the time, I was not asked to complete a certification in that case either.
that answers my question. I have this timed about 5 minutes exactly, so questions. Beside Mr. Kelly, has anyone attempted to get a recording of the proceeding to listen to it? And Mr. Kelly was there. Anyone listen to the recording?
Oh, I can get a recording.
Okay, let me go. I would like to go through the issues. Issue 1, special meeting notices 9/20 and 9/26 in the annual notice, and as its effect on the 10/23 meeting. As stated previously, the 20th and 26th of September were not held in accordance with the OPMA, and the judge failed to void any actions because remedial action was taken on 10/23. For the record, 5 voted for remedial action and 4 did not. For the record, the township attorney advised against remedial action. And it appears that remedial action was an important consideration, if not the main deciding factor. The current mayor and all council members are found to have violated the OPMA when taking the 9/14, 9/20, 9/26, and 10/23 meetings together. Furthermore, the court did find the council violated OPMA, and they were technical, not hyper-technical like the township had argued in court. Issue 2, on 10/23, I spoke about issues with the resolutions you used for closed session. Even after it was changed, I still mentioned it was not sufficient, and this led to then Councilmember Kelly amending it from the floor against the advice of the township attorney. Well, I was right, and the township attorney was wrong. Issue 3, the court addressed the issue of making minutes promptly available to the public. This council was sued in 2012. Why then did 2 lawsuits have to occur in a span of 7 years, which is unheard of in Oatmo, on the same issue? I think the court order this time went further than the last time, but I nevertheless hope a policy is put into place to make sure this governing body complies with OTMA and the court decision moving forward. In regards to this, I would like to ask, and I will direct this to Councilmember Quinn, since he was the only person here then, after Rockaway was sued for OTMA and lost in 2012, did the council have any discussion to make sure it complied moving forward with the law?
Not that I can recall.
Thank you. Issue 4, this dealt with the failure to hold proper public comment periods and is the first case I know in this state that said, yes, the governing body has flexibility to run meetings, but that flexibility goes only so far. It was hinted at in other cases. It is the exact possibility which the Supreme Court in McGovern left the door open to. First, to Council Members Sackett and Friedlander, thank you for making a motion to try to prevent the violation. Second, thank you to now President Kelly for trying to ask if the public portion should be moved before closed session. The 3 of you were all shot down by the former president. In his decision, Judge Minkwitz wrote, the council entered closed session for an indefinite period of time without any indication as to when it would break and reopen to the public. As such, the council's actions amounted to a de facto failure to meet the public comment requirement of the law. When you came out of the 12-11 closed session, I was holding a sign that had McGovern written on it. So where are we now? I went through all the issues of the past few months with OTMA because no one is innocent. Every member of this council has participated in a violation of the OTMA, which has undermined the public's civil rights to witness and participate in the actions of this local government. Yes, one member of this council is more to blame than others. And yes, it is easy to point fingers, but I'm not here to do that, nor should you. The question now is, will this town comply, and will it hold those primarily responsible for violating the OTMA accountable? Will it censure the actions of the former council president? Will it take action in regards to the incorrect and non-competent advice it received from its legal counsel? OTMA is Chapter 101 of municipal law. It is clear that Mr. Inglesino did not know it, and it is clear Mr. Iacofano and Mr. Perone do not know it. Before acting on any legal advices to the OTMA, I implore you, consult with an OTMA attorney, consult with an experienced municipal attorney, not only on how to move forward in general, but how to move forward with taking remedial action on items which you can, because there are some you are prohibiting from remediating. As your own attorneys wrote about me, his brief contains issues and laws that mine did not address. Well, why didn't your attorneys ever address Warts or Lakewood? Is it because they did not know them? If you have any doubts about what I am saying, I will ask you this. Since September 15th, when have I been incorrect about the OTMA? Just because I am from a supposed remote part of our state, I think my record stands on its merits advocating for OTMA, what is in the best interest of the public and this council concerning its statutory obligations. This isn't a political game or a contest of finger pointing. OTMA is not political, and it's time it ends. How did the council end up in this position? The answer? Jedniak, Iacofano, and Perone. I call on this council to do the right thing, and if it won't, I call on its longer-serving members, in number of years served, Mr. Quinn and Mr. Friedlander. Do the right thing, not the popular thing. This council needs a John McCain, a Joe Manchin, an Olympia Snow, or the NJ equivalent of a Dick Cody. Thank you for your time. One more question. Will you be releasing the sewer report to the public?
That would be something that we can address in a new business too. And we can get back to you on that. And Mayor Puzio, do we have any other administration here? When we talked last on the 26th of February, you were going to bring the other members 30 days from that for the sewer.
Yeah, as needed, I said I would bring people in. And
are they here
was this on for discussion tonight about the Bobby? Are you talking about Bobbyville?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, were we informed that we were going to be speaking about Bobbyville?
I'm only going based on what you said, that it was going to be another 30 days.
No, I didn't. We didn't say that. We were going to try to get the attorney, Mr. Perone, and you wanted Mr. Sheard. Mr. Perone was here at the last meeting, and we were ready to speak about it. One component of it, Mr. Sheard was unavailable. And now we have Mr. Perone, who's not available. Mr. Sheard's available, so we're trying to, Mr. Kelly, you want
Mr.
to
Sheard's
both-
here?
No, he's not here.
Oh,
I said Mr. Perone is not here. You wanted both people available, correct?
I'm only, again, Mr. Mayor, I was only going by what you said at
No,
the
no,
26th.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did, but it's
No, I
okay. If there's nobody here, then.
Yeah.
All right.
No.
But we'll still have some conversation under under new business on it, so we can answer. Mrs. Degman? Ah,
That's in violation of the mic.
what's the statute for that?
Make one up.
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I have a couple of things that I'd like to discuss tonight. One is on Resolution R 19-61. In reading the resolution in paragraph 1, 2, 3, it says, whereas the vendor, as of December 31st, 2013, and then it says vendor, complete all. I mean, this is a simple spell check in the resolution. So if you pass this resolution, it's not really correct because it's not correctly grammatically. The other thing is, recently came to
Is that
my...
is that the only flaw?
That's the only flaw I
Okay.
found in that one. As you can tell, I read everything before I get here.
Yeah.
So I can speak.
Thank you for that.
It recently has come to my attention that the email address I have given to Rockaway Township to send me Rockaway Township information has been given out to a member of the Financial Review Board, and I am now receiving unsolicited and incorrect information from this person. Also, I was very disappointed in the budget review meetings that I attended, not only for the fact that they went till after 1 o'clock in the morning, but by the behavior of some of the people on the dais and the way they treated and bullied both the chief of police and township officials to try to make them look uninformed. Another thing is Mr. Jeniak constantly refers to Robert's rule when it suits him, but when a member of the public requests a Robert's rules question, it's ignored.
Ms. Stegman, is there an option on your emails that you're receiving to opt out of receiving those emails? Mrs. Coleman?
Good evening, Emily Coleman, 18 Lakeshore Drive.
How you doing?
Great. So hopefully this is not going to be controversial because there's nothing controversial about it, but I just wanted to let everybody know that I am a recruiter for the 2020 census, and the 2020 census is up and hiring right now. So if anybody in the community would like to apply for a job, you just go to 2020census.gov/jobs. You can fill out if you're available part-time or full-time. There's great pay. You're paid for your training and your mileage. So if anybody wants any information, I have it. So hopefully that's not like controversial. That's just like federal government, like counting people, giving us money.
That's good. Is there a contact number as well as just an email?
No, that's the application's online. That's all you need to do.
That's it? Okay. I didn't know if there was a phone number of contact too or whatever.
No, there's just 2020census.gov/jobs, and you just fill it out as you're available and go through a background check, and they'll give you a holler.
On the table over there?
I will.
Okay.
Yes. Does anybody want one right now?
Thank you, Ms. Coleman.
I did that.
I got, is it Mr. Silberger?
I got kicked out of it, yelled at.
appears every so often.
How you doing, Mr. Silberger?
Good.
We haven't seen you in a while.
I haven't been able to come, but I
Yeah.
figured I'll come back down. Barry Silver, 12 Lakeshore Drive. Actually, quick question for you, Mr. Kelly.
Go ahead.
I had sent you and Mayor Puzio a copy of my resume for the Technology Committee. Wasn't sure if you got it, didn't hear back from you, heard back from the mayor.
You know what? We did, and I have to apologize because I did mean to put you on for this agenda.
That's fine.
But I will make sure that you're on the agenda for April 9th.
That's okay.
Do you still want to be on?
I don't know, you may not want me when I'm done tonight, so we'll see. We'll go, but I'm willing to volunteer for it.
You still want to be on it, though?
Yeah, sure. Quick question, and, I'm saying this based on, I wasn't here at last meeting, but I did watch it on the...
Budget meeting or?
No, the actual council meeting.
Okay.
And somebody had raised a question about the closed session minutes about the Datchison lawsuit and releasing those. And Mr. Jedniak said they can't do it because it's still active litigation. It's the office of the mayor. However, that's factually incorrect. The title of the case was Datchison versus Rockaway Township Council. Mr. Puzio's lawsuit, new docket. Before Mr. Schmidt goes to court for another OPMA violation, I suggest we put it on the agenda and release the minutes.
Did you request the minutes for Oprah?
No, it's been requested multiple times from people up here. The closed session minutes were never voted on.
What I'm saying is, have you made a request for any of the minutes?
I have not made a request. Multiple people stood up here and asked about it in public at meetings.
Session minutes.
Mr. Galchifano, generally, closed session minutes aren't posted on a website, is that correct?
Well, they haven't been
In most
approved either.
towns-
Well, hold on.
I believe that they have been approved. I believe that they were actually approved in October, if not October, November. I know it was in the fall. But they aren't generally posted online. If they are Oprah requested, they can be released to the public as long as the matter that was discussed has been finalized.
Okay, so then if we put in an Oprah request, it should be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when you come, I mean,
Well, because the last meeting, it was stated that it can't be released by Mr. Jedniak because it's an active
I don't
case.
believe, I recall that.
I don't recall you actually saying.
I do say that.
Well, we have the township attorney in the newspapers being quoted saying the Puzio case is a mirror image of the
That doesn't
Datchison
mean it's the
case.
same
No, no,
case.
no.
So we still have an ongoing issue
I
there.
think,
See, there's my point.
But
It's not the same case.
but I understand that though. But I
Yeah.
think what you stated though is that they aren't completed. Obviously, you.
If they're completed, that's
You,
fine.
you
then
said,
put
you
a
misstated that they weren't completed,
That's
right?
fine, so I stand corrected,
You also-
but I'm going off of
I understand.
what is being said from the dais.
But you still didn't check to see if in fact they were or they weren't.
That's fine.
And
Well, if they were done at the October meeting, then they weren't
But if I'm
really done.
correct though, you haven't made an Oprah request for
I have-
those minutes to
I have
validate
not.
whether or not they've been done.
There have been many people up here asking about it.
But you don't
I'll put
ask-
a request
you
in.
don't ask-
do
I'll put a request in.
Yeah, that's all. I mean,
Can't do that.
that's how it is though,
That's
unfortunately.
fine, I'll put a request in. One other thing that I wanted to touch on, it also has to do with what Mr. Jedniak said at last meeting about the website and the SSL and the security around the website. I'm a cybersecurity professional.
Okay.
When you see vulnerabilities or known issues, you don't announce them in public. You don't do it. Google Project Zero, Cisco Talos, they all have policies of notifying the vendors of vulnerabilities they find before disclosing them and giving them a minimum of 90 days to fix it. The correct action, especially for somebody from the council who's supposed to serve the city of Rockaway Township, or the township of Rockaway, would have been to contact the administration to fix the problem. Not come here and publicly do it, because if something happens subsequent to that, the argument can be made and you can face litigation that, hey, we publicly disclosed an issue and now it was taken advantage of. You don't do it. It's not something you do. But to make matters worse, while he was factually correct in the main site, did not have that certificate or may not have
Do you
had it.
realize what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I'm correcting the issue because it's not an issue.
But you're going against it.
But it's not an issue. And here's why I'll tell you that. Because while he stated basically the Wikipedia page of you don't enter your information, you don't put your credit card stuff, the links to where you do enter that information were all secured. I know I paid my water bill online. I'm not going to do it if it's not secured. I'm a cybersecurity guy. They were all correct. They go to separate sites off of Rockaway Township sites. I think water, sewer, and tax goes to cit-e.net. which has a certificate. The logins go to Civic Plus, which has a certificate. So what's the point of coming up here and saying that? What's the point of doing that? Why not, if you really believe there's a problem, talk to the administration about it?
And in all fairness, Barry, were you part of any of the closed session? I mean, that's pretty much a redundant question. You weren't.
No, but what does that have to do with announcing what
No, I
you
know
think
that,
is a
but there-
vulnerability?
but when
You're
you-
coming here saying that you're worried about the security of the township's computer systems based on a ransomware event, and then announcing we may have another vulnerability. That's essentially what happened. Why would you do that?
But the conversations that we've had of some of
It's
the,
irrelevant what you have behind closed doors, because you know what? That's behind closed doors. Have the same conversation behind closed doors. Don't publicly announce that kind of information. It's not something you do.
Council President, the answer to that question is straightforward. The issue is in public view. It's right on the township's website. It's clear that the
So
administration
why
is not
call
looking at the
attention,
public
why
website.
call attention to it?
For the,
Remember
for the
the technology committee,
for the
Barry.
same reason that we call
let
attention,
him finish, please.
for the same reason that we call attention to the fact that this council has received next to zero information about the ransomware incident that took place on Thanksgiving.
It's in the hands of law enforcement. It's a law enforcement
Which
issue.
law enforcement? Which law enforcement?
It's in the hands of law enforcement.
Which law enforcement?
It's a criminal investigation.
And that is the information that this oversight body, this governing body's job is oversight. Those are the answers we get. The issue is in plain public view.
And they're
It
good
needs to be
answers.
brought attention.
Proper answers.
So are other vulnerabilities that are out there. The point is you don't call attention to them.
It's
You
in
call attention
public,
to the
plain
right
public view. You go to the website
So
and it
you know what?
says, not secure.
You may be right,
Gentlemen,
and that is,
Barry?
yeah, hang on. There's one other thing I want to mention about that. I wasn't here that night, right? I watched the video 2 days later.
Right.
When I went to the site 2 days later, it was secured. There was a little lock on it. The certificate was issued October 2018. You can't backdate those certificates. So I don't know if it just wasn't applied properly or what was going on. But when I looked at it, the entire site was secured.
I can tell you that. Mr. Dyer called up our website, and someone had to actually backspace to remove the S, and now we put a lock on it so they can't do that anymore. It was secure.
So the way you do that, I mean, the technical.
That's not correct. If you look at the screenshot that was provided,
Right.
it was the S site with
So if
with
the
the
site
certificate.
is not designed to automatically
I
redirect to a
can't,
secure
I can't
site.
tell you what you saw, but I perused the screenshot, and
Right,
it is
and
what it is.
you know what, you could take the S off. If the site's not designed to automatically redirect to the secure site, you can do that.
The screenshot shows the S.
It shows the S.
I don't have a copy of it because I handed the copy off to the mayor.
Correct, and I gave it to the
But if
And it sounds like it got corrected, so that's great.
But if it shows the S, how is it not secure?
It didn't have the S.
Because the certificate,
It didn't
it said, it,
Okay.
we can have an offline
Yeah,
conversation if
we
you'd
can have a
like.
conversation about it,
Yeah.
that's fine. But what I'm saying.
I would be happy to discuss it with you
Right.
further.
You made your point.
My point is, that's not something that should be done, whether it's publicly available and you know about it, it's not something to be called attention to.
If there's a fire in the street, we're gonna say there's a fire in the street.
That's
If
right.
there's a giant pothole in the street, we're gonna say there's a giant pothole. Same sort of issue, it's in public view for everyone to see. It should have been caught by someone in the administration.
Right, and so you do it privately. If there's a security issue, you
Very-
can come here
very-
and announce it.
Except that that hasn't worked here in Rockaway.
Okay, so
Barry,
if
Barry,
there's a
hasn't
security
worked.
issue, okay,
I'm asking you, please.
okay, that's fine.
You made your point. We're going, it's ongoing and it's,
Right.
repetitive. Is that all you have other than that?
I think that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Barry.
You're welcome.
Mr. Waters? How you doing, all right? You look good for 71. Did you grab a water by chance over there?
Sorry?
Did you grab a water over there?
I did not get a water tonight, thank you. Mr. Council President, Council, Joe, I'm glad to see you're here tonight. Administration, Blue Team, love seeing you here, and I'm happy there's not 15 of you here, because someone said to me today, what do you think we're going to do, throw our Medicare cards at you? I hardly know where to start. I really don't.
I'm sure you'll find a spot.
Well,
Mr. Waters, who's the blue team?
Sir?
Who's the blue team? What does that refer to?
That refers to the police.
Okay.
I have 25 years as a volunteer in the fire department. When I was in the fire department, we were the red team. They were the blue team. It's just that kind of understanding.
Thank you,
Not-
Mr.
Not
Wood.
any kind of approbation. Oh, man. Just to comment on your comment about the deficiency in the OPMA meeting announcement.
The resolution?
The resolution
Yeah.
itself, thank you. That what the judge had to say, if I read it here correctly, is that the township has made efforts to make meeting minutes promptly available. However, the council's attempts to wait out the public at the November 27, 2018 and December 11, 2018 meetings indicate a continuing pattern of bad faith and perhaps an attempt to subvert a different section of the law, undermining the fundamental purposes of OPMA. So I really don't want to talk about technical violations when the judge is talking about this, okay? We also talked about, we talked about quorum. In fact, quorum came up again tonight, and I had a chance to look at Robert's Rules, which is the favorite reference of one of our council people. As Pat Beckman has noted, that we get a lot of comment and support when it goes in one direction, and we get no satisfaction or commentary when it goes in the other direction. But basically, Robert's Rules said that when you need a majority of the total number of council people, that an abstention counts as a no vote. So you're 4 to 4. You don't have a majority of the total number of 9 council people. Well, that's your Robert's Rule.
You're incorrect.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not looking at Jeremiah's Rules of Disorder, I guess.
We have a specific version of Robert's Rules. The clerk has it. In fact, I bought copies for most of the council members
The
here,
most recent version, Mr. Jet.
and nobody brought it tonight.
Well, you can go online.
Mr. Waters, can we just move on now? I'm not going to argue about
The cases that were cited by the cases on that topic that were cited by Mr. Schmidt are the
when I was much younger, which is that you make a statement.
Please, in the audience.
And you challenge the person who's talking to you. You make it appear as if you knew what you're talking about, when frankly, you don't know what you're talking about. The same comment about needing a quorum to adjourn a meeting. Well, that doesn't seem to apply in New Jersey, doesn't apply in New York, doesn't apply in California, Michigan, or the other states I checked. It doesn't apply in the U.S. House of Representatives. That a quorum is a privileged, that a motion to adjourn is a privileged motion, does not require a quorum. And that does not address the fact why you guys snuck out the back without adjourning a meeting, which is technically still in effect.
Quorum is lost whenever a majority is lost.
That is not true.
That is absolutely true.
You go look at the legislation.
Mr. Waters, I mean, just if you make the point, I just don't want to have a whole debate going back and forth.
You got. He's sitting there.
Mr. Waters, if you would like to debate this, if you'd like to debate this on the dais, I'd be happy.
Lie after lie.
Mr. Kelly, could you just let him talk? Yeah. Please.
Let's move on.
Mr. Waters, I have to just interject for one moment. I understand that you have your right, please, in the background. You have your right. You want to come up here and you want to speak. I get it. I'm not interested in having this big debate over small little things about Robert's Rules and your version, his version. You made your point. He made his point.
I've done a lot of research.
I understand that. And the two of you disagree on something. So once we disagree on it, let's move on. He's not going to make you believe in his end of it, and you're not going to make him believe in your end of it.
Despite what the New Jersey legislature
despite what he says too, in all fairness, though.
Right. I'm sorry?
If you can move on to your next issue that you have.
Sure I can. You made a big deal a couple of council meetings ago about the fact that you didn't cut surplus, you cut specific line items, and that absolutely is true. What I would like to just read from a statement, 3/27/2018 statement from our late Mayor Mike Dashison. The wasteful spending the council president spoke about is not spending. If you don't fill vacant positions, the money goes back into surplus. Cutting 3 police officers' positions was not a wise move. When officers are ready to retire, We hire new officers to train and go through the academy so they are ready to go when others retire. With all the stuff going on at the schools, cutting the officers was not a wise move. 47% of taxpayers' taxes were already going down. We don't know if any services are being cut. I'm worried about the attorney's cut with all the upcoming litigation, which turned out to be a very prescient comment. The money that was cut for Patterson Field, you can allocate that money and the taxpayers do not have to get taxed. If we had the money on hand, we could work with that, but now we have nothing to work with because of the cuts. And Mr. Whitting on your Financial Review Board commented, thank you for cutting the budget so much. He says you have to start somewhere, whether it's $67 or $100. Money in someone's pocket is better being spent by the town. Why should we give it to Rockaway if Rockaway doesn't need it? And then you proceeded in your budget cuts, which were over $1 million, to cut 34% from the police. 34% of your cuts came from the police budget. 28% came from Parks and Recreation, which you propose to do again this year. It's just absolutely stunning. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Waters, is that something that you assembled, or is that something that you got through an Oprah request or some document somewhere? What you were reading, was that something that you received through an Oprah request or something you created, or?
This is from one of our meetings here.
Okay. I know that you had, I think, 3/27/18. I just didn't know if it was a letter or if it was minutes.
27/18. It's a statement that our late mayor made in this meeting.
So it's a meeting date.
I'm assuming that's what it is. If you'd like me to find the whole reference.
No. I just didn't know if you got it online or if it was something that you got. Was it something that you listened to the audio and then you transcribed it yourself?
No. This is a written record. I don't do the audio thing because it takes too much to go through it. I will note that I have opened most of the closed meetings. Most of them have been approved.
Yeah.
Disappointed that most of them don't say anything because it appears that most of our council people don't really want to say anything in the closed sessions. They leave it up to us to figure out what they said.
Well, it's not verbatim and we can't record it, so it's limited to what you
can record it. You choose not to.
You don't.
You can record it.
If you look.
You choose not to.
Well, that choice has been done, I don't know, God. I think after the litigation that I had against the township, they stopped recording the meetings at that time in 2011. Well, I'm not. It's because it creates more litigation having a recorded closed session. You can look it up and cite that too. And, Mr. Waters, could you just come up real quick on something though? I know. You have a post that you made on Facebook that was on there, and you talked about specific resolutions that are in here, in your post.
Yeah.
I think you posted it sometime, maybe around 3:30.
Could you read it for me so I don't have to remember it? I'm 71, remember?
I don't think so. It's your own post.
Well, if you won't read the whole thing, then I'm not going to respond to it.
Well, you wrote it. I mean, you just wrote it, but you spoke about two resolutions.
If you're not going to read it, start to finish, I see no reason to comment on
Please
your
attend tonight. If you're available, Council President will be channeling his inner JJ. Council needs to cure redo actions taken at 11/27 and 12/1 meetings, else there are a way to avoid the per Schmidt-Hollenbach open decision. TK seems to favor everything except Jackson's appointment. I never spoke to you about anything. Some include me, having said that likely it can't be cured because of time limits in the municipal vacancy law. However, we're not attorneys and can't claim to know that Judge Minkowitz might rule. TA drafted a resolution which he believes will allow Jackson's appointment to stand. TA drafted a resolution that he believes will allow Jackson's appointment to stand. How did you get that?
I don't have a copy of the resolution.
How would you know?
You know what? I was looking at JJ's website one night, and it just occurred to me, out of the blue.
But this just happened, though.
I'm sorry?
This what you're talking about just occurred. So you have knowledge about work product that nobody was public, it was open to the public.
I suggest you get an attorney and then talk to me.
Mrs. Platt. Platts. How are you, Ms. Platts?
I'm fantastic.
Good. Go ahead.
Katie Platts, Tuville Holloway. Now that there has been the second or third judicial determination that this council behaves illegally, even to the point as has been mentioned tonight, these are not, despite your attempts in the beginning of this meeting to act as though the decision, it's not, you don't look at an order, you look at a judicial decision to see what actually is the reasoning in the decision. And Judge Mikowitz's decision is written, it's online, it's available to everybody. He found that you acted again, not just once, but again in bad faith. There was reference to Councilwoman Abramson's comment that was recorded that we all can see, when very late in the evening, as a few people were sitting here after that closed session, and they asked, excuse me, when will you come out? You said, well, you can leave. It's funny to you, but it's pretty disturbing to people who sat
Mr.
here.
Waters said the same thing in the audience.
And that sat here in excess of 12 a.m. And even at that time, there were a lot of people who felt that. We didn't necessarily need a judicial decision to tell us that you were trying to wait us out, that you were intentionally having closed sessions before public comment and then staying in there past 12:30, 1 o'clock. And of course, you knew that the likelihood would be that there would be nobody here left to actually speak, because the truth is, you don't want to hear our opinions and you don't want our opinions to be public. But we didn't need it, but we have it. It's not just our opinion, it's a judicial determination, a ruling that this council, specifically the council majority, has over and over violated the law and acted in bad faith. So these are not technical violations.
You realize it's the
Frankly,
whole
sitting
council
here-
that was, the judge didn't just specific members.
Frankly, as I sit here tonight, it's very easy to remind me what is probably the most problematic element of this council and why we're not functioning in a healthy way, why we're not being productive. And it's, if you notice, when you guys took the dais, what you started to do, and if you want me to point out specifically who it is, Councilman Kelly, Councilman Jedniak, you immediately started pointing fingers. Oh, you know what? See, this happened and there was this ruling, but gosh, you know, the attorney made a mistake, or, you know what, I
Do you
told
feel
the
that the
council.
attorney made a mistake?
I'm not done, and
I know, but
I'll give you my opinion
I'm
at the
gonna
end.
give you time.
So, what is concerning is that despite who sits in the seat of mayor, you know, it's one thing when there was a previous mayor and Mr. Jedniak, you accused him of corruption and criminal wrongdoing to the point that you hired an attorney to investigate him criminally. You didn't go to the prosecutor's office, you spent our money to do it, and it was nonsense. But funny enough, no matter who sits in that seat, now we have a completely different human being, a man who has dedicated himself to law enforcement and has nothing but integrity and a history of committing himself to the community. Suddenly, because he's mayor, now he's suddenly engaging in crime and corrupt. The fact is, you're a conspiracy theorist. And instead of being productive and instead of moving forward, and I haven't heard one productive thing that you've said, because you sit here and you argue with the public and you argue that your mistakes are someone else's. What we would really like, and in particular from my perspective, having children, what the people with children would really like, is for this council to engage in some productive action, because practically all you've been doing is having to go back and waste our time and waste all this time redoing what you've done before because you failed to follow the law, and not only that, but you failed to act in good faith. So if you would please stop wasting our time, stop arguing with residents, and stop arguing and making up nonsense about the administration because you don't like them, and instead use your position as the public wanted you to, in order to create a better town. I'm asking you to consider doing things that are good for our town, recreation, infrastructure, fields, and law enforcement. Create a better community instead of spending all your time pulling us down and being negative. Now, in terms of the SRO, it's my understanding that first of all, I stood here after Parkland and said, hey, would you guys consider doing something about this? We are the only municipality in all of Morris County, that does not have officers in the schools. No class 3s, no SROs, no one. And we stood here over a year ago, and I stood up and said, we need this, and you guys gave it lip service and have done nothing.
That's not true.
It is true
No, it's
because
not.
it took the Board of Education and Mayor Puzio coming together to get this proposal running,
They were
and I
starting
know
it
that
before
for
Mayor
an
Puzio.
absolute fact.
Well,
Incorrect.
You're not honest. You're being.
I'm not
you're
being
inaccurate.
dishonest.
You're being very
And
dishonest.
the reason
You
that
weren't
we
here for the
want an
budget
SRO.
Most of what you say is dishonesty, if we're being.
Mrs. Platt.
Okay, you know what? You want to get started with me about dishonest? You bring criminal complaint. No, he just made an accusation against me. Are you out of your mind that I'm not going to respond to that? No. You're not going to sit up here. Nope. You're not going to sit up here and say you're not going to filibuster me. He just told me that everything I say is dishonest.
Most.
Okay, no, what I'm upset about is that I was just accused of being dishonest, and it's Platts.
Mrs. Platts.
No, excuse me, let me finish. You have a councilman who just accused me of being dishonest.
But what happened, Mrs.
And I had the luxury and honor of representing Jay Rodman.
Mrs. Platts.
You, Mr. Jedniak, are the liar. When people say things that you don't happen to like, you bring criminal complaints over and over and over because you know you can't stand a little criticism. Frank Berman, Jay Rodman, you sat there and you practically cried on that stand and you lost with Frank Berman. People aren't harassing you because they say that they disagree with you. Don't call me a liar. I don't certify the lies, sir. So in terms of the SRO, the reason that they want an SRO rather than a class 3, no, the reason, I don't even hear, the reason, I just want to get this, I don't want to have a conversation with you.
But you know what, I mean,
The reason that they want it, no,
I'm asking you, please, you'll get your time.
I just want to address something.
I understand that, but I just wanted.
I'm not having a back and forth after being accused of that.
But
You don't do anything to stop the way that he treats.
I'm trying to stop it
No. He mistreats residents over and over, and you sit there and tell the residents to stop
Can you just
talking.
pause for a second? Just for a second. That's all. I mean, you're an attorney. When you go in front of a judge, I know you don't act like this.
I am reacting to somebody impugning my integrity. I am before a governing body, and for a councilman from the dais to sit there and accuse me of that is more inappropriate than my response, sir. So why don't you chastise your colleague?
I'm asking to stop for both of you. But I think what happened, Mrs. Platts,
I haven't heard you say anything.
I will address it, but I have. But Mrs. Platts, Mrs. Platts, Mrs. Platts, Mrs. Platts, I'm not going to gavel. I don't need to. We're adults. We need to police ourselves.
Exactly. That's the whole point I'm making, sir. That's the whole point I'm making. We're all adults.
Mrs. Platts, I think what happened was when you stated something, you were being corrected because if you were here at the budget meeting.
Everything's online, sir. I have a job. I know that some people here don't work.
Mrs. Platts.
I actually have a job. So I can see everything. Just because I'm not here doesn't mean that I don't see it.
All right. Well, then if you saw that, then you heard our chief having communications with the school since 2018. When you said that it took Mr. Puzio to do it, that's not true.
Okay. Great.
That was
so
false.
Getting back to the
that was false what you said.
Okay, you're right. You're right.
It's not a matter of that.
You're right. Okay, can I
Council
just move
President
on?
Kelly, that was with LEAD we started in 2018.
We're talking about SROs, though, Mr. Mayor.
That's why I'm saying
Right.
it didn't start back
So
then.
you
It started
mentioned
recently.
something about lead, but
Yeah,
we
it's my
had
understanding that the
movies
meeting
that were
between the administration and the superintendent was this year. But so either way, the question was, why an SRO over a class 3? The reason, my understanding is, and I am not on the Board of Ed, but my understanding understanding is the reason for an SRO specifically at Copeland versus at the elementary schools. You want 6, how about we at least have 1? So that we're going to have a starting point with the SRO. Just please stop interrupting me. We can talk at the end. No, you don't.
We have 2, Mrs. Platts. We have 2 SROs.
We do not have armed officers in our schools.
We have 2 SROs.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
We don't have them in our schools full-time.
Please educate Mrs. Platts.
We have no security in our schools at
No,
this
do we
present
have
time.
SROs?
We have no security.
We have no security that is
Do we have
full-time.
SROs in the township, Mr.
What is the
Mayor?
point of
Talking
that?
about the schools. I'm specifically speaking about the schools.
We have no security in the schools.
You're lying
2
now.
SROs.
We have no
What good is having SROs if they're not purposed in the school?
Well, that's your.
Why don't you purpose them?
We have no school.
Why don't I what?
If you've had them for so long, why weren't they in the schools beforehand?
Sir, I'm trying to.
Platts is not
You
understanding.
you cut our police last year.
You are making things up, Mr. Kelly.
I'm not.
I've been here since November.
I
I haven't
understand
been here for a year.
Thank you. I appreciate
I've been here, let me finish.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I've been here since November. I've tried to get this process off the ground. I met with our new superintendent. The reason certain things didn't take place prior is we were having a flux with the superintendent. There was an outgoing one and an incoming one, and that's important. I had to wait. I was trying to get lead put in the school, working with the administration as a council person from up on the dais. I chose to use my time instead of arguing every week and getting assassinated as I come to meetings. I chose to use my time as the Board of Education, one of the liaisons with Jack Quinn, and attended those meetings. I chose to use my contacts and my connections to bring lead into the school, and I did it through the administration. I had respect for the administration, knew that Mayor Datchison had to be part of that. We had a prior superintendent that I knew, or towards the end, we were told that he was not going to be renewed. That slowed things down. That slowed the process down. Maybe it would have happened sooner. It slowed the process down. Now we have our superintendent currently right now has an exodus. He's moving to another district. So there's been certain technical issues that people haven't been speaking about.
But I believe the Board of Ed has already approved it. The Board of Ed has already approved it.
Say the question again.
We have,
No, I'll let you.
no. We have 2 SROs trained in our police department. That's not what I'm saying. We have 2 SROs. We have trained officers under SROs, correct?
I would have to check with the chief if
We
they've
have
been through the
2
training.
SROs
Okay.
now.
Okay, so if that's true, what good is it?
But you cut the police.
No, Mrs.
They're not
DeBron.
we have no security full-times in the school.
None.
They are not purposed to be in the school. And the model that Mr. Kelly speaks of as the class 3s in Parsippany, it's not, the model is as follows. We have it has a K through high school district. We have a K through 8. In the middle school in Parsippany, they have full-time police officers. Full-time that are trained, they're considered SROs. They are full-time in the high school and the middle school. The K through 5 is a different culture. You're dealing with younger children. You're dealing with younger children who basically need more security, more familiarization. It's feel good with the kids. And we are there, I am there, I work there in Parsippany. We are there for security. That's our main purpose. When you put an SRO into a middle school, you're dealing with threats from the outside as well as threats from the inside. You're dealing with, it's a dual prong, it's a better system to have a full-time officer in a middle school. He's dealing with a different population. Kids are going through puberty, they're growing up, that's where they're most vulnerable. An SRO has a greater bandwidth to deal with that than someone than you would need to have for a K through 5 district. It's a better model to have a full-time officer in Copeland. It's a better model. The superintendent was here last week and wanted that model. You can go and look at the videotape. At this point, I will take anything that we can agree upon to get someone into the schools.
And what we were talking about too, though, we were trying to add.
Oh, it's public comment.
It's okay, you still have your time. We still have the other 5 schools that we're trying to address as well, Mr. Puzio, Mayor Puzio. And that's something that you haven't said. It wasn't just an SRO just in Copeland. We have 5 different other elementary schools to apply as well.
There's a whole
And for the
system
money
in
that's on
place.
there, you're
There's-
not listening
May-
either.
May I, Council President?
I'm sorry, Mr. Palumbo.
Mayor Puzio, I understand and I respect what you're saying, but a Class 3, as my understanding in Denville and Morton, have the same training as an SRO. Just hear me out.
I am.
Okay. An SRO, that term is not just relevant to either a Class 3 or a full-time officer, as you say. Am I correct?
I have had SRO training. My designation is a Class 3 officer. As a Class 3 officer, retired, working for a K through 5 district where I work, I have limited abilities. The law limits my ability. It limits my ability. I have to go in the morning, according to law. I have to sign my weapon out. I have to check in at the police department. At the end of the day, I sign my weapon back in. I am no longer considered a law enforcement officer. Whereas a full-time officer can attend events at night, can go on field trips, can deal with a greater bandwidth of problems. They have access to certain databases that I don't get, those types of things. They're more equipped for a middle school. When you're dealing with, I deal with this every day, when you're dealing with young kids, they're just looking to get familiarized. I'm there more for security for the younger kids, as opposed to support as a full-time officer in the middle school.
But in Denville, in Morton, and Rockaway Borough, their middle schools have Class 3s in there. And by doing that, their cost savings enable them to put Class 3s in their other schools.
What I would like to
No,
see...
it's not money over security, it's securing more kids with the money you're dealing with. Because what was presented to us was to secure one school, am I correct? Yes. Okay, so we're having a conversation about securing all 6 schools.
The middle school is a larger population. It's about 800, 700 and change as far as kids. So you're dealing with a larger population as opposed to the grammar schools. There's less kids in each grammar school.
Okay, I understand that. So whether you have a full-time officer who at 3 o'clock goes on patrol, while he's in that school at that time, he's still only one person that's an armed person, no different than what a Class 3 would be.
We're all armed. Yeah.
Excuse me?
We're all the Class 3
I understand that.
are armed.
But I guess the law was put into effect to help boards of education and townships provide armed security of seasoned officers, whatever which way they choose to do it. But by doing it with the Class 3, like all these surrounding towns do, it enables them to cover their other schools with an armed, seasoned law officer. Am I correct?
With limited powers.
No, my understanding is they all have police powers. In the school, they have police powers.
In the school, but not off the school. When
Okay.
you're dealing with a middle school, you're dealing with a different population, it's a whole different
But we
set.
have regular police that can address those issues too, though.
Well, that's the whole problem there. When I worked at Copeland, we would have to draw from the detective bureau all the time, and they would be over there all the time. With this model of having a full-time active officer, they're going to take up all of that slack. They're going to be assigned to that school, and they're going to be inside. They're going to be dealing with the children, problems. There's going to be a comfort level where these kids who are from 6th grade to 8th grade are vulnerable. This is where kids start to experiment, and they need a little bit more than a guy with just a gun on.
But he can be more than a guy with just a gun in the school. Am I correct? They're still considered SROs. Denville, they go through the same training.
Well, you want an officer that goes in concert with lead. What we're trying to do is, the plan that I had envisioned is, we're going to get an SRO, full-time guy in middle school. We're going to have him do some instruction. He's going to do a little bit more than a Class 3 special.
Okay, understood that respectfully. But to that, and that was your proposal, administration's proposal was to cover one school.
For now.
And we had a discussion, I guess, with the chief at Friday night about doing it for all 6 schools under the Class 3. So, I mean, I think I wasn't a law enforcement officer. Is the bigger threat when the kids are in school or when they're on a field trip? What is the real concern of a parent, when the kid is in school or when they're on a field
Well,
trip or?
The real concern from a K through 5 district is strictly security. When you're dealing with a middle school, like I said, there's the internal portion. You have kids, it's a very vulnerable population. You're dealing with social, emotional issues. Do we have anybody from the Board of Ed here who tell me, I mean, correct me. We have some teachers here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Could I just ask a question?
They deal with the kids. They deal with the kids. It's a different level when you're dealing with law enforcement than when you're dealing with
But
civilians.
they can have the same training as that law enforcement for the purposes of dealing with children in the schools, even if they're in middle school, like they do in Denville, Morton.
They don't have the same capability. But listen, it's okay. Listen, this is for, we have a shared service agreement. I'm sure at some point we'll come to some
This is the
agreement.
most information we've got since you've had communications with the.
Well, the only reason that you're getting this information is because I do the job. As far as the concepts behind it or the theories, that's just, I know it because I do the job. I wouldn't expect anyone else to know. I was a police officer for many years, and
How long have you been an SRO?
since August.
Mayor, you asked if anybody is here from the Board of Ed.
I'm not an SRO, I'm a Class 3, SLEO.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were an SRO.
Mayor, you asked if anybody here is from the Board of Ed. Does anybody here have children in elementary school?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Grandchildren? That's children, grandchildren, okay. Guys, that's a couple
I
questions.
have a question.
And then I'll get to you, Mr. Jackson.
I know we used to have at least five DARE officers. I don't know what the number is now, but I know there was at least 5 to 7. Those DARE officers can be trained in lead and go into the school and introduce lead. It was just, it's a substitute for DARE. It was out when I was teaching DARE. So I don't see why we can't use the resources of the DARE officers to train them all in lead and come in and go, and several officers could get to know the kids in Copeland. So you have one officer go in and do one 7th grade and mingle around, and they have the opportunity to go to lunch with them and walk the halls. We do have those officers trained in DARE and just transition and train them in lead. And we would have to cover that whole school with many officers and investigate the security for all.
We don't have the personnel. I already checked with the chief. I already checked with the command staff. We don't have the personnel.
So there's no DARE officers anymore?
I would have to speak to the chief as far as that. We do not have the personnel until we have people who get out of the academy to put one in a cop in every school. We don't have the personnel. That's why I want to get somebody.
I do believe every elementary school had a DARE graduation this year.
Okay, I don't know that. Councilwoman Abrahamson, I don't know.
We were all invited as
Okay.
council people.
And that's wonderful, but I just want to get something started.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to address Mr. Jackson, and then we can jump into some new business and move forward on that. Mr. Jackson?
Just, thanks. 2 things. Did you say Parsippany middle school has SRO?
Parsippany has 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, and 10 grammar schools.
But they have an SRO in the middle
They
school?
have full-time officers, full-time, not retired, not.
And what's their population, do you know, in the middle school, or?
I don't know. I think there's probably around 800. And don't quote me on that.
Well, no, I'm just.
140 police officers. How many police officers they have? Like about 140?
No. About maybe 110.
I'm just trying to find comparable, like I think Denville's comparable to us. I would imagine Morton and the boroughs middle schools are probably a lot smaller. The other thing was, I could have sworn when we were talking initially about this with the chief, and when the superintendent was here, there was some talk that by having a full-time officer in the middle school, it would free up some of the other officers that were patrolling, and they might be able to spend more time.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Kelly, if I could just finish and I'll say.
You know what, and I apologize, absolutely. Gentlemen, and Mrs. Abrahamson, we're going to take the rest of this into new business, and we can address that. It's just, and you know what it is, and I apologize, but when you made the comment about the school and the SROs and everything like that, it spun into a big dialogue, so.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's really the mayor's fault. So
It is.
when I brought up the SRO, first of all, I actually work with police officers quite a bit in my profession, and I think that there's 2 major reasons why an SRO is needed in the middle school rather than the elementary schools, and there are differences. In a middle school population, specifically one like ours that is fairly large, there tends to be reporting of crime at school quite a bit. Kids report assaults, sexual assaults, cyberbullying, things like that that require an immediate response of an officer. That is partially what the mayor's talking about. That requires somebody off the road to come and respond. The SROs are trained in order to investigate, not just to do security, but to conduct investigations. Also,
I believe class 3, they,
I don't do investigations.
yeah, I know, but I mean,
Also-
I have it right here, so I mean,
Right.
I think an SRO, whether it's class 3, that's trained in the same
Well,
training,
I disagree. It's my
it's
understanding.
right here.
It might be on your piece of paper in
It's
front
not,
of
this
you.
is off the state website.
I understand,
Okay.
but SROs have greater training, and they're
You get
actual
yourself.
police officers that are in the department. So they're not, there from 9 to 3. If there's an investigation, that doesn't mean it ends at 3 o'clock. That
Correct.
might require an officer until 5 to be
Correct.
interviewing witnesses. If they're not an SRO, they have to go home. And what happens with an investigation is generally one detective or one officer is running it. So that interferes with that. 2, there is crime that occurs at school. You need to do locker checks. You would need to invest actual crime that's occurring at the school. That sometimes requires a deeper investigation. If you want, you can take officers off the road all the time, but it's my understanding that they have a lot more training and expertise, and they can stay there past the end of the day. It is specific to that population, and I would just suggest that before you decide not to deny 1 in order to get 6, I ask that you would consider 1, and that there is a particular reason, and there is a big desire clearly over the past year or 2 to just disagree, because the person that's suggesting it is not somebody you're politically affiliated with. How about we actually consider this, because I really care about our kids.
We are working on it, though, so don't
And
misconstrue. We have, I even mentioned it at the Parkland. So,
I
again, you're making a comment that's not accurate.
all I was saying is there tends to be, anything that the mayor says, you guys just have
That's your
to
opinion,
disagree
though.
with.
Mrs. Platts,
So,
can I just have 1 second?
of course.
Okay, so the class 3s, if we do 6, and we can work it out with the Board of Ed and administration, would probably actually, to have 6 of them would cost more money than to have 1.
Well, my understanding was
Right.
that the Board of Ed was going to be paying $70,000 towards
For-
for the SRO. So it's not, just to be clear, the salary of the SRO is not all falling on the municipality. The Board of
understood.
Education has agreed for $70,000. I don't know what the numbers are, and maybe you're right. It was just that I know that was specifically why the SRO.
Okay,
I want police in every school, but
sure, so do we.
I'm very concerned about the middle school population, because I have a daughter, I've seen what goes on there, and I deal with victims in middle schools, and I see that a lot goes on that's much more sophisticated, intense than at the elementary.
This whole
school.
system, I
Yeah.
guess, of SRO in class 3, was it really born out of these shootings that started with Columbine and the fear that's ongoing forward? Is that a fair statement?
I honestly don't know the history. I do know that, yes, is my concern for them to be, there to be cops that are armed, absolutely comes from school shootings.
Sure, and
No
so
doubt.
at that point, Mayor, retired law enforcement are seasoned, they're good with firearms, they're trained, and they're just as equipped to stop something like this as a regular police officer. Is that correct?
Sure, I mean, I have to go through
Okay.
training twice a year. I have to follow all the Attorney General guidelines.
Absolutely.
You would be correct as far as
Are you done, Mrs.
the
Platt?
security aspect.
I understand, okay.
Security.
And that's, I think, why these came to be, to begin with, because of the Columbines and
Yeah,
shootings
oh
of
yeah,
that sort.
absolutely. They wanted to put security in schools, but they wanted to do it in the most cost-effective way possible.
Right, right. So,
Can we, we're done. I was going to ask anybody in the public that didn't sign in. But, Mr. Mayor, we're going to just take up on this in the end, and new business, all right? We can address it like we intended to. I know that, and I'm going to get to that. If there's anybody that hasn't signed in that would like to speak, Mr. Dio, please come up.
It's the right height.
Oh.
Oh, is there somebody ahead of me?
No.
Patrick Dio, 11 Valley Road. I wasn't planning to speak, but a couple of things came up. And, these smartphones are an amazing thing. And while the discussion was going on about SROs, I went online. And there's a New Jersey School Board Association report that was issued on May of 2017, dealing with the whole subject. It's quite a lengthy article, but I urge everyone on the council and in administration, if you haven't had an opportunity to read it, to read it. Now, one of the interesting things about it that I found out is that there was the law was passed by Christie, our Governor Christie, in 2017 at the behest of the School Boards Association to help the school boards provide security in school systems. And they came up with the Class 3s. Now, according to the report that I'm reading, it says that a Class 3 SLEO, not SRO, will meet all of the qualifications of a Class 1 or 2 SLEO, except the Class 3 has to be someone who has the experience, has to be under the age of 65, has to go through all of the same training of the SRO, and when they're on duty, here's one of the things that was interesting, and I'm reading. While on duty, Class 3 SLEOs will have full police powers and be permitted to carry firearms. All right, all right, and the whole program was to take care of school districts that had more than one school, like ours. Right, we have 6 schools. Just the other day, my wife and I were talking about it and about the SROs, and my wife said to me, "Well, which school are they going to put it into?" I said, "I think they're talking about Copeland, you know." She said, "Well, what about the other 5 schools?" She says, so I mentioned about the Class 3s. And I said, you know, with the Class 3s, we could, as with the cooperation of the Board of Education, you know, come up with the money to provide security in all 6 schools. And the Board of Education, in my opinion, coming up with $70,000 is piddlings. Look at this Board of Education budget. It's more than our budget. Mayor Puzio, we talk about our budget being 40 million, right?
7%.
The Board of Education's proposed budget, I wonder how many members of of our township have looked at it. The proposed budget for the coming year is over $50 million, and they're going to give $70,000 towards school security? That's a shame. That is a shame. And I'm planning to go to the Board of Education meeting and tell them so. But anyway, read the article. One more thing. Marvelous thing this phone. There was a lot of discussion about Robert's Rules of Order and voting and stuff like that. Well, under Robert's Rules of Order, an abstention does not mean a yes vote. It doesn't mean a no vote. It means you don't vote. You're out of the picture. It's like you don't even exist. And therefore, the vote is based on whatever the rules of your organization. So if your organization requires a majority vote of all those present, right, and that means, say, 5, if you have 4 abstentions, then you have 4 votes. The way I read it, you don't have it. All right? But an abstention, why you abstain, I have no clue. And you know, that's one of the things I've mentioned many, many times that bothers me. I have council members that abstain, they vote no on minutes, and they don't explain their vote. I just don't understand
I
that.
wasn't there. I abstained because I wasn't there. I abstained because I wasn't there.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm
Okay.
talking about the other vote. Okay, anyway, one more thing. I mentioned this at a meeting, talking about Robert's Rules of Order. This is your code, section 2.4, 2-5.1. Let me read it. Questions of order, methods of organization, and the conduct of business of the Rockaway Township Council shall be determined by the council president, who, at his discretion, may choose to have any matter in issue concerning questions of order, methods of organization, and conduct of business determined by majority vote of the council at his discretion. Like, Robert's Rules of Order may be consulted for general guidance to aid in the disposition or resolution of any issue. However, Robert's Rules of Order shall not have binding effect in any matter or issue before the Township Council. I mentioned when I first brought this up months ago, I don't know if some of you recall that, I said I recommend that the council revisit this issue and decide, do you want Robert's rules or you don't want Robert's rules? If you don't want Robert's rule, don't keep bringing it up because it's not, it's the president who is fixed with the responsibility of how to conduct the meeting and the order, but the council president can bring it to a vote of the members, you know? So anyway, thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Dio. Mr. Kramer? No, because your husband was an advocate to get you up here last time, so I figured as much you want to say something. Go ahead.
I do. The SRO Class 3 thing, I think we've muddied this up enough. The priority is to get a security guard with a gun in each of our schools.
Which we're trying to do.
I don't care if they're warm or fuzzy to the kids or not. That's not their first responsibility in our schools.
Well, I think the question, it's funny you say that, because of the most recent passing, where they were talking about corrections officers and stuff like that, those that were in the jails, there was some concerns about that personality change. Mr. Mayor, I think you might have saw that new amendment that they have.
I did. They're having a hard time getting these positions filled.
Yeah.
And because there's a 3-year statutory requirement, you have to be retired for 3 years or less. It used to be 5 years. You have to go through a psychological. There's people who go through the process that I know, not personally, but that I know of that have gone through the process who they're just not because they're deficient or defective as far as their capacity to serve, but it's not a good fit, their personality with the children. And I think that's what Mr. Kelly's
absolutely
referring to. You get a certain culture.
And don't get me wrong, somebody who is interactive with kids is ideal, especially in Copeland. That's absolutely ideal. But first things first, we need someone there to protect the kids.
Agree.
We have guidance counselors, we have teachers, we have all kinds of those warm, fuzzy people who do that kind of stuff. I want somebody there with a gun. End of it. After that, let's tackle that first. And not one school, all of them. I mean, that kindergarten kid is just important as that 7th grader. I get the middle school complexity. It's a tough area. I hated it when my kids were that age. It stunk. I get it. I want the person there with the gun. That's the first priority. Let's make that happen, and then we'll figure out the rest. Well, we haggle over all of this stuff, and I get the challenges.
We have that on new business to go over that
awesome,
today.
But yeah, let's stop getting things all muddied up.
Yep.
And thank you. That was it.
Great. With that being, Mrs. Lucas, raise your hand.
I agree with what she just said. As Mr. Palumbo was saying, maybe we can work something out with the school board and et cetera. Why not ask for the whole shebang? Why not ask for the full-time SRO officer for Copeland and for Class 3s for the rest?
Or if you were to, have at least something versus nothing, you would accept Class 3s all the way around?
I'll accept whatever we can
Thank
get,
you.
but what I'm saying is, why not ask
Yeah.
for everything? If this is our goal, let's ask for it.
That's what we're here for.
Okay?
There was-
And I know that
there's-
there were other points of
Well, there was a presentation of only one, and we're trying to have
I understand that,
yeah.
but as, like I said, we're thinking,
But
we're thinking outside the box, so.
Yeah, but we're getting into that in new business.
Okay, my other question or just point was, there was discussion about minutes of closed sessions that have been approved, and that maybe it's not the standard practice to post them online. If there's nothing that says they can't be posted online, I would request that maybe they do, to make it easier for those of us who want to stay informed, rather than have to file a motion, which, you know, honestly, I really don't have the time or the inclination generally to do that. So if they're approved minutes and they're available to the public, why can't they be posted on the website? Okay, just generally one note, I don't know what the gentleman's name was, but the guy who spoke about the IT guy, I think you should seriously put him on the board.
Thank you, Mrs. Lucas. With that being said, is there anybody else? Okay, we're going to close to the public. What do I do with my agenda? Here we go. We're going to be on number 9, consent agenda. And I'm going to read this all the way down so we can vote it out in one.
I'd like to ask a question on one of them.
You want to pull it out for discussion?
One question, yeah. I have something I want to ask on R-1961.
Why don't I go through them all? And then,
Okay, that's what I want to know. Should I wait till you're done, or? Yeah.
Right?
Okay, very good.
On 9, for the consent agenda, we have R-19-54. I have R-19-55, R-19-56, R-19-57, R-19-58, R-19-59, R-19-60, R-19-61, R-19-62, R-19-63, and R-19-66. With that being said, is there a motion? Do we do a motion before we pull one out?
You can just request to remove it.
And then which one do you want to request?
I just have one question on R-1961. Do you want to pull it, or do you just want me to ask my question and we can move forward?
No, there's no discussion on
Yeah, we'll pull it and I'm discussing
Okay.
and then vote on it again.
Okay, very good.
So we'll put R-1960, I'm sorry, 2, did you say?
R-19-61.
I'm sorry.
And Council President, that is the one that has the grammatical error that needs to be amended before we vote on it.
True.
Anybody else have anything they want to pull, Mr. Quinn?
No,
Anybody down there? You guys, no? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
That was,
Second.
Mr. Quinn, motion. Mr. Jackson for the second. Please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Judenak,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. 8 yeses, motion carries.
Yeah, I just have a question. For
Sorry.
administration, if they could answer me. So this resolution, it's for the period of 2008 to 2013, and we're just getting this resolution in 2019. Can you tell, why is that?
Waste Management just sent us a request to release the bond. They just sent it. And we had trouble locating it, but then it was found, and we put it on the agenda.
Okay, that was my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
And do we need to make a motion for the correction to
I think we just move it with the correction, because it hasn't been moved yet, so we don't need to make a separate motion to amend.
Okay.
So
And I
I'll
think the
make,
correction is to have the word complete, say completed, is that right, Mrs. Degnan?
I think it's just to separate complete and
Yeah.
all.
just separate the word.
Yes.
Just put a
Space
space in
between.
Oh, I'm
between
sorry,
the
that's
words.
right, the space.
Just put a space.
Should it read, Council President, completed past tense instead of complete all?
You know what? What do you feel, Mr. Yesterpano?
Well, if it's work that's done, I would read the whole sentence or the line.
Completed all of its obligations pursuant to?
Completed, past tense.
Yeah. I think the vernacular, that would be fine.
I'll move that resolution with that amended wording.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilman Jeniak, second by Council Vice President Abrahamson. Ready? Please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. 8 yeses, motion carries. We have council appointments. I'm just going to go right down the list here from A through C. Again, if anybody wants to change their vote, just name which one it is. So we have firefighters is Kevin Peer, we have EMS is Kevin Peer, and we have Technology Advisory Committee, which is Sean Bernard. Do I have a motion? Mr. Freelander?
Second.
Mr. Sackett? Ready? Please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. We got 8 yeses, motion carries. Congratulations to everybody. We have on new business, I know we covered a lot of it through Mrs. Platt's portion of her open to the public. I think, Mr. Mayor, what we're looking at and comparing it to other municipalities that we have, again, your involvement now for the last couple of months in Parsippany, and I wasn't making an example of only Parsippany, it's just another one that's connected to what that has there. The cost of the officers that you have in the budget and the amount of monies of what the school wants to put towards that of only $70,000, and the previous agreement that expired from 2008 to 2011, which the SROs, I'm sorry, the Class 3s didn't exist at the time, and now things have changed. We're looking to see about some type of a savings of maybe applying some monies, maybe working with the school to see if there's some additional funds that maybe we can move up a little bit to maybe facilitate security, not in just one school, which is the middle school, but in all the elementary schools together. My daughter is no more important than anybody else's daughter or son, or less important. So I think, the cost of a life is one thing. I remember there was a comment that at the time the school was wanted to spend more on education and security, and I kind of disagree with that mentality. But moving forward, maybe we can somewhat get a plan to maybe get them all together. And the other thing that we need to deal with is there is a provision in a contract that I think we should potentially maybe try to open and have some concessions to maybe work with our police union and see if we can make that happen too. I think if we come to the table with our administration, with our police union, it was indicated by our chief that it didn't occur. And so while all the discussions with the schools were taking place, discussions weren't taking place with the police during their contracts based on what the chief had said. And there was something that may have been missed. And because of what was missed, we may be barred from having Class 3 because of a contract. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that, and I'm under the belief that, obviously, there has to be some negotiations.
Sure.
The collective bargaining agreement has to be, you're allowed to reopen a collective bargaining agreement and make, if both sides want to do that, and make amendments. I think the spirit of what Council President Kelly is talking about is the police department doesn't want to have part-time officers hired, a whole slew of Class 2, or not Class 3s, don't confuse them, Class 2 officers filling in and taking the job of full-time officers. That's what that provision was. I'm sure that I'm going to have faith that the FOP, PBA, would be amenable to discussing that.
Yeah, they're not against having,
No.
that's not, I just wanted to correct that. I believe that they're willing to, whatever it's needed to, in order to do that. And there may be something that they would want to receive in return, but if it's so minuscule, if it's, let's say, for instance, hypothetical, again, a hypothetical end of it, if there was 20, 30, or 40,000 that would go back into something else that they were negotiating at a time, and in doing so, what we put in the class 3s in there, which they would allow us to do, we may save even that much more money, because for one SRO that season, maybe its top step, making 120 plus pensions and benefits, close to 140, 150 combined, we could have, several amount of class 3s for that cost.
Generally what happens, and I'm going to breach we brought this out in public. Obviously, there's a negotiations that takes place between the Board of Ed and the township, two different entities. Generally what happens with the class 3 specials is that the Board of Education pays for those exclusively, and it's a shared service agreement, but the Board of Education pays for those exclusively, the class 3s, because they are purposed to the school full-time, whereas an SRO is purposed during the year when the school is out. When I say SRO, I mean a full-time officer. The difference is a class 3, when school is out, summer comes, when they're off for a week or 2 weeks, the class 3 officer does not work and does not get paid. Whereas an SRO when the schools are off, gets pulled and gets put back out on patrol. When he's not needed, or if the schools are closed down, he can work an extra shift. So he's a little bit more utilitarian in that respect. But generally, the class 3s are paid for exclusively by the Board of Education, and the training, the equipment, weapon, all the holsters, all the duty gear, all the uniforms are paid for by the police department. So I don't want to give up too much of what our negotiations are, but I think we had to do that tonight to get this out.
Mayor, that's absolutely, well, you know better than I, but Denville, the borough, and Morton, exactly what you said. The Board of Ed picks up the whole cost of the labor piece of it, for lack of a better term, but they provide the training and the uniforms and stuff of that sort. But I just want to clarify one thing, Mayor. It was suggested that if you say A, we're naturally going to say B. And I'll tell you what, in this instance, that is further from the truth. You suggested, got the ball rolling with regard to getting one guy or one woman in the Copeland. But because we suggested, let's see what we can do, talk to the Board of Ed, and get 6, that's not taking an adverse position. That's saying maybe we can do something more for the other schools.
Sure. Listen, I'm amenable. No one has heard me say that I'm against any of this. I want to work something out. I want to get something in there quickly. That's my whole.
Understood.
That's my
but
point.
I just want to clarify that because we said this, and there was a suggestion made that or certain unnamed council people were rude to the police chief. That I'll speak for myself. That was further from the truth for my discussion with the police chief, because he educated me about the history of these SROs in our town and how budgetary reasons it was stopped, I guess, in 2011 by the Board of Ed, if I'm not mistaken.
No, what happened is we had security guards that were hired by the Board of Education. When I was on the board, it was something that I pushed for. They were retired police officers. They didn't carry weapons. They were.
One did.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of. Why would that even come up? One did. I don't even know where that comes from. They were hired. They were hired for the schools. They were unarmed. They were security. They wore a security jacket and they walked around. And then when the budget failed, the point that I made is I didn't say that at the last meeting. I didn't say that education is more important than security. What I meant to say is, or I'll clarify that, is the state has mandates that need to be met educationally. You have a certain amount of money You have to follow the law. Those mandates have to be met. We had to lay teachers off, tenured teachers. We couldn't meet those mandates that are required if we kept security, and then we would have been out of compliance. So that's the point that I was trying to make. There were teachers that actually were let go, tenured teachers. So we lost the security force and we lost teachers at that point. And it took us years after I was off the board to get some of those teachers back. I'm not going to give you exact
Yeah,
details.
we're getting off the
remember.
whole line here now. Let's get back to the security thing.
So let's come up with something. Let's get some security in the schools, and let's do it as quickly as possible.
Can I jump in, Mr. Palumbo? Do you have something more? Mayor Puzio, when you had the resolution that they have here for the $70,000 that the school wants to do, how fast were we going to put an SRO in the school?
We're waiting for, there's a couple personnel issues. I spoke with the chief. We have to get our staffing up.
But we have two right now, though.
We have two, but we have people who are out. Some people are on leave. Some people are out on a medical leave as well. I'm not going to get into the mechanics
That's
of who
okay.
they are. So we do not have a full complement of people downstairs.
But what's your projection of time?
A month to 2 months.
So that when the school year is almost ending?
Yes, I have to wait for, I spoke with the command staff. I have to wait for 1 or 2 people to come back.
And we don't have a time frame when that's happening?
We do. That's why I'm saying within a month or 2. I don't have the exact date in front of me right now, but we can amend this. I just was talking with Ms. Seeger. I'm not going to speak to the mechanics of the contract as far as how it would work. I know what the premise is, but if Ms. Seeger could explain a little bit.
Well, I guess the importance is to show that we care about the children and get someone in there right away. That if we go forward and agree to this and get it moving forward, we always can go back after we work out the class 3s or whatever we're going to do to the school and change this within 30 days. But I think it's important to get someone in the schools while everybody's on board.
Yeah, but we couldn't do anything anyways right now to get anybody into school.
If the budget is approved and we get those 2 new officers, we can do it right away.
But the budget's not going to get approved until, that's the introduction. So we still have some time to work some kinks out and have some conversation, because even if you were to get the budget together, as Mayor Puzio said, because of the issues with personnel, it's going to take a month or 2 before we can even get anything going.
I don't have the dates those
That's okay.
officers are due back.
But we can work on that, though. I mean, we're only talking another 2 weeks to maybe wake some kinks and work with the union to see what we can get together and see if anything's there moving forward with that.
And then we have to hire. There's a hiring procedure for class 3s.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go through, obviously people have to be obviously people need to be interviewed. They have to go through a medical testing, drug testing. They have to go through a psychological. There's a process to hiring these people as well. So that's going to take, it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen
Even
overnight.
a new police officer has to be trained in
Well, a new police officer has to go through the academy for six months.
Yeah.
A retired officer comes through. They're already trained. They're PTC certified. They come through. They get interviewed by the police department. They get hired. They go through the background, physical, psychological, get to the range, get range time to get qualified with their weapon. So there's a little bit of a process also in hiring the class 3s.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to do that? Do you want to say
We do have officers coming out of the academy very shortly, and that would help. And so if we agree to start with someone in the schools, we can move forward as soon as they're out.
Well, you still have others that are on leave. Like, I'm a little confused from ones that are in the academy or those that are out for whatever reason, medical, veteran status. There's a whole host of things that are surrounding that.
Correct, but first we have to get an agreement in place to move forward with something, and we can change it at any time. But at least we're showing the school we're in agreement and we're moving forward and protect the people.
I think even now, we have a member of the board right now for the school. There's no doubt that we're energetic to see what we can do to get them in all the schools that are there rather than just one school that's been presented. So again, I think that if we can have some dialogue with our FOP and PBA,
Sure.
and then,
Hey, Mayor,
Sure.
Mayor, I have a question, Mayor. What does PTC stand for?
PTC's Police Training Commission. Every officer that gets trained, that goes to become a police officer, has to go through the police academy and go through, a battery of testing and
they're
physical.
not going to be the ones going into the school.
And they get a PTC number.
Yes, as a corrections officer, it gets a CTC number, corrections training.
Hear him talking with the sidebar conversations.
So, are we good to maybe see if we can get some discussions with the FOP and PBA?
Sounds good.
And maybe we can, I mean, obviously, but we're just going through this now. I mean, we only received this right during the budget, so we had no idea. And we weren't part of all the communication from 18 to now.
Plus you also have to be in communication with the school board or the...
Yeah, now we have a superintendent that's leaving, going to Dover. I don't know if that puts us back in the beginning again, or we can still hit the ground running.
No, we have the framework, we have we have the resolution in place. I don't think it's going to be problematic.
Okay.
With the
So,
board already approved monies.
So we can,
Yeah, because we already discussed with that, he wants that CRO first,
who's that?
the superintendent of school. That was his main thing when he
Well, I
discussed the
think I was just
SRO.
following the direction of what the mayor was. It wasn't really him.
No, that was the superintendent.
No, that was the
wanted
superintendent that wanted the SRO first.
That's what
And
the
then
school board voted.
And the board wanted the SRO, and then go into the,
Did we even, I mean, I had asked the superintendent for the resolution or any kind of I didn't receive anything. Did you receive anything?
It's right here. It's in your packet.
That's the only thing, is just the resolution that we have?
Yes, and they passed their resolution.
But I'm saying their resolution, I know what we have, but
That is the same resolution they passed.
it's identical to what it is.
What number is
Yes,
that?
exactly.
60, yeah, 64, right?
Yes,
But
they passed that resolution.
shouldn't the Board of Ed be made aware that we may be looking, hopefully, go in a direction of covering all 6 schools and cost something out for both sides with regard to the,
Well, that was my intent, was not to give up my negotiation strategy, but I did. Tonight was to ask the Board of Ed eventually to pay for those S-Class 3, the SLEO 3s, and we would do the training portion of it. We would, provide like I said, the equipment and do the training, and that was my hopes.
So we're all in agreement to have the administration reach out to the PBA and the FOP and keep us in a loop on that?
Absolutely.
Great.
Yes.
So we'll do that, then we'll wait, and then maybe we'll have something different to present on the 9th or following. So,
Council President, why can't we just vote on this one? I'm in agreement, we should have the SRO in Copeland, and we should have Class 3s in all 5 of the elementary schools, but we have the thing here for Copeland. Why can't we just vote on it tonight instead of waiting and waiting? All we do is wait.
Mr. Sackett, it's not a super wait, but I mean, if we could have a potentiality of having discussions and maybe amending whatever we have here. in
Well,
one vote.
this one, I like this one.
But nothing's
And
really-
let's go with, and then we're gonna have conversations about the others.
But
So
this
why
right
keep,
now-
hold on one second.
Okay.
Why keep waiting and waiting? All we do is wait. Let's put it in motion and get it going. And then they already approved it, let's go. I'm tired of waiting all the time. Let's just go. I want it all, like you. I want it all. But I don't want to just wait on this. We have it here. Let's do this one, and then let's have conversations about all the other schools as well. Let's get the Class 3s in the other schools and work it all out. I don't know why we're gonna wait.
Councilman Sackett, like I told you, I have a plan. I'm trying to get it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and Mr. Sackett, just so you know, we just had this dropped on us. We are learning about information as we're going now. Maybe you might have had some information before.
We talked about it at the budget meeting for 7 hours.
We didn't talk about it. We just got the resolution. We just got the resolution, Mr. Sackett.
Council President.
That's all.
I don't understand what's wrong with the
All we're
resolution, though.
asking is, we're trying to see if we can get an
I'm making a motion to vote on this tonight. Please, do we have a second?
Council President.
I'll second it.
We were discussing this resolution. The
Yes,
issue,
for discussion.
the issue with this resolution is it doesn't cover the Class 3s, which is the
We
stated
have
goal.
a second on the floor, please.
And we have
Can we vote on
requested,
it?
and we've,
Discussion, it's for discussion, it's not for a vote, Mr.
Council President, Council President.
It's only for Mr. Sackett. It's until the 9th of April. You just heard the mayor say we can't get anybody in the schools anyway for a month or two. So
At least if we vote on it, we can get the ball rolling. We can't get it rolling until then.
the ball is rolling now.
Not really.
How is it not rolling, Mr. Sackett?
Let's approve it and then get going right away. If we keep waiting 2 weeks and then next meeting will be another 2 weeks, and 2 weeks school will be over.
Council
Let's just vote on it. I made the motion. It's seconded to approve this resolution. Let's go.
So, as Mr. Diaz stated earlier, you as the council president set the rules of order. We've already gotten an agreement from Mayor Puzio to go to the FOP to reopen negotiations with regard to obtaining Class 3s, so we can get Class 3s in all of the schools. This doesn't have that in this agreement. Right? This agreement is not that.
It doesn't need to. We can do both.
Vote on an agreement which is not what we are seeking. We are seeking to have the FOP potentially agree to allow Class 3s, which requires a renegotiation.
That's all, John. I mean, we can get this back on the 9th, and we can call it a day.
Well, you guys are stating Mr. Dio's article a lot, but if you read the bottom of your article, it contradicted what you said. So you didn't read the bottom, what it said. It says right on your article, several school districts have employed retired police officers as part of their security detail. While they being professional law enforcement experience, some school security experts caution against the practice, as they have no official law enforcement powers or immunity and do not report through the local law enforcement chain of commands.
Yeah, they do, Mr. Sackett.
Well, this is why we need an SRO. And then let's go with Class 3 and the others. That's my point. Let's just vote on it, stop delaying.
It's not a delay, Mr. Sackett. It's being accurate. I mean, it's work. I don't understand. We're sitting here trying to get police officers in all the schools, and we're trying to get it all together. We just had this brought to us now. We're learning more information. We got more information to address and look into it. Reach out to our FOP and our PBA and move forward with it. I don't understand why it's a big deal. It's been going on since 2018, but yet we just got it now, and then we got to digest this thing in a small meeting right now rather than try to get some more information.
The Class 3s.
The Board of Ed brought it to us. Are here to talk about it tonight. They want us to vote on it. That's why it's here. We're not voting.
The Class 3s would be a separate agreement.
I'd like to have Class 3 in the other schools.
The Class 3 can be a separate agreement.
SRO now, and then they can discuss the Class 3.
Council President, the board member who attended made it clear she attended not as a board member, expressing her opinion as an individual, not speaking on behalf of the board.
We're muddying the waters now.
Well, can it be revised? If you can revise this resolution?
And we can address everything in the next 2 weeks and have it back on the 9th.
With everything.
It's not a matter of the 5th vote. You're going to get it. Nobody's going to vote against it. We're just trying to get everything together. Jesus.
The Class 3 would be a separate agreement, so they would be separate and apart from
You can put the
this.
agreement together, though, Mr. Mayor, all in one shot.
No, it's a totally separate animal.
We're seeking one agreement, aren't we, Council President?
That's what I thought.
We're seeking one agreement with Class 3s.
You're not going to use this as a trump
Council President, can we move on to other new business?
Council President, you have a motion on the floor. And a second.
What's that?
Council President, can we move on to?
We do. No, we have a motion.
And the Council
Mr.
President
Sackett,
says
do you want to withdraw the motion so we can address this?
No, I want to vote on this resolution.
So you want to rush it rather than address it?
Just this one. It's not being rushed.
I love the people. Huh? Do you have a comment, Mr.
So the total cost of this, including the SRO in the middle school, in addition to 5, the Board of Ed is not going to share any of the cost, or shouldn't they be in on the cost? Because originally, Mr. Sackett, some of us advocated for all 6 schools. Not everybody up on this board did that.
No, correct. I agree with you that I definitely want the other 5, but maybe we can have them pay for the other 5 there, the Class 3. But we have this here, we have a shared services agreement for the SRO for tonight. We have a motion on the floor. Okay, let's vote on that, and the Class 3s will be a separate thing. Maybe we get the Board Ed, like Mr. Dio said, they have $50 million, maybe they could pay for the other 5. Get that going, too.
I'm sorry?
And I think the council vice president makes a good point. That is all part of the negotiation that needs to take place. The agreement we have in front of us is incomplete. It doesn't cover all the schools. The goal stated by the council is to cover all schools. This doesn't do that.
Right, that's part of a negotiation agreement to cover everything, not
We still have
just
the budget too, John,
one
to deal with.
portion.
That's the introduction of the budget when we get everything squared away too on the 9th. We'd have more information right then and there to move forward with it. I don't understand why just 2 weeks to resolve all the money issues and the additional stuff that's there.
It just always gets
It's
pushed
not,
back. I'd
though.
rather
It's
just
not
vote
going to be
for it
resolved, the
tonight.
money issues, in 2 weeks.
Council President, this only came to our attention.
Mr. Mayor, would you, I mean, when we got talking before, we were all in agreement to maybe move forward to talk about this, to have this wrapped up for the next meeting.
Well,
Are you against that?
no, but
Okay.
whoa, no, hold on. I hear you making comments that we're going to wrap this up in 2 weeks. I think it's inaccurate, and you're saying something that I can't do, but my administration can't wrap this up in 2 weeks with the SLEO 3s.
You can't get any more information and see if
Oh, I can get more information on anything, but it's not going to, the money portion is not going to be wrapped up. This can be wrapped up tonight. That's what I'm saying. It is up to you. I'm going to stay in my lane. I don't vote. It is up to 9 council people to vote. I'm just telling you that I can't wrap up the SLEO 3s. I can't get that process started. There's going to be a negotiations portion of that. This, we can approve.
Mr. Walters,
If you
please.
choose to, if the council of 9 chooses to approve this, this we can wrap up tonight. I can go to the chief. We can sit down with the Board of Ed. The chief can interview within the department. All of this takes time to do. That's why I say someone's going to have to come. You know, I have personnel issues that the administration deals with, that the council doesn't see the mechanics from where I sit in the seat of the mayor and where Ms. Seeger sits. We're dealing with a lot of personnel issues. It's not as simple. It's not as linear as you think. There's a lot of moving parts.
Mayor, can I ask you one question, Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr.
Why part of the original game plan for this, didn't you suggest an SRO in Copeland and 5 Class 3s in the elementary schools?
Why didn't I?
Yeah.
Because right now we have the Board of Education is going to pay for, they have a budget and they're willing to pay for, give $70,000 right now. The superintendent felt right now that we could get an SRO, a full-time officer in the schools quickest, and that's what we wanted to do. It's if you listen, it's a good thing. I know we all agree on it, all 9 of us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I see that. It's up to you guys to vote. Mr. Sackett put a motion on the floor. Mr. Freelander seconded it. It's not my choice. I'm a guest at the council meetings. I'm a guest here, so I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I'm just going to proffer and
We're not
give you my
asking
opinion.
you to do that.
No.
Wait, Mr. Mayor, it was the discussions that you were having with the schools that we weren't privy to.
Because it's an administrative
No,
function.
hear me out, though. I understand that. But yet, it was a presentation that was somewhat brought during a budget component, and a superintendent without any awareness that came here to speak about something about this SRO with really no documentation, no nothing. Just a motion that was passed at a prior board meeting before he came to our meeting. So we didn't know anything, and we're getting a little bit more information now, and all we're asking is to dot all the i's and cross all the t's, and maybe there could be even, instead of having a 70 for one SRO, maybe they would use the 70 for 2 Class 3s.
Listen, there's a lot of possibilities. It doesn't
So
mean
you
that...
would have a Class 3 in Copeland for now, and you would also have another Class 3 that could be a floater for the other elementary schools.
Listen, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not the person to debate with. You guys need to make the decision. The 9 council members need to make the decision. I gave you my opinion. I gave you the council, the 9 council members my opinion. You can do what you want with that opinion. I know your opinion may differ. We both feel that we need security in the schools. The council can vote. That's it.
You gotta do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Have to.
I vote yes, and I do want other SROs in the schools,
SROs or Class 3?
Class 3s in the elementary schools. So I vote yes on this resolution that the Board of Ed passed.
It's too late.
Councilmember Freelander.
Yes on the resolution that it passes now.
Councilmember Judnack.
No.
Councilmember Palumbo.
No.
Councilmember Sackett.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson.
I vote no. I would like to have this resolution amended, and I'll make that motion next.
Can we do that, though?
Talk to the attorney.
You can't amend the shared services agreement.
It's a resolution, yeah.
President Kelly.
I want to see an SRO. I'd rather have all class 3 for the cost savings, but I would vote yes to do a security in the schools. Even though that it's going to take 2 months, I hope it happens before the end of the year.
Yes.
But I don't see that happening. You're not guaranteed.
said
I did. I voted.
You said yes.
What's your vote? I voted yes.
You voted yes.
It's not about time. That was a setup, though, unfortunately, by a council member. We were trying to do something better for you. What is it?
5 yes, 3 no's, motion carries.
5 yeses, 3 noes, motion carries.
I just hope we do get SRO Class 3 in the elementary schools, because this would be a complete travesty to the rest of the residents. And if I had a child in the elementary school and I wasn't getting protection for my child, I would really be appalled.
I just
I
want to,
hope the people of Rockaway are listening.
I just want to make you, I want to make the public aware, our police officers are not in the grammar schools or in the middle schools full-time yet, but we do have, they are assigned to stop in and to go to the schools. If you notice, if you have children in the schools, they are, throughout the day, they are tasked with going to the grammar schools, going to the middle schools, so they are vigilant in that respect. I want to get full-time Class 3s in all the schools eventually, and we're going to have to partner with the Board of Education to do that.
But Mr. Mayor, just so that we all know, we have 2 SRO trained officers currently in our police department.
Great. And Chief McFarland, he's in charge of the police department. I'm sure he'll be making those personnel decisions as to.
So we're not hiring new SROs. We have SROs already there. Is that
Oh, no, that's what I'm trying to say. We have a police officer already. We're going to get $70,000 for the school, prorated for the rest of the year, but it's $70,000 a year for a full year, where that officer is currently employed by Rockaway Township. And $70,000 from the Board of Education is going to go to the township. It's going to switch hands, and that officer will spend his time, that SRO will spend their time in the school while the school is open, and then when the schools are closed during the summertime or weeks off, they'll be repurposed back to the police department for whatever tasks the chief and the administrator.
And how many do we have in the academy now?
How many do we have? 4, Pat? How many do we have in the academy? 4 or 5? 4.
One was a lateral from another
Yeah, one was a
department.
lateral, so we have 4. 4, and the academy is done in June, I think. It runs about 6 months, 22, 23 weeks.
But you're going to put one in there before the end of the school.
We're going to, yes.
Where am I? Agenda? No. Sorry.
Good try.
We're going to go into reports. Mr. Quinn?
I had a conversation with
Microphone, please.
I had a conversation with the gazebo committee, Little Sweet, and they are booked now with all of their different bands and everything right on through. In fact, they're going to extend their gazebo committee function into Labor Day, and they're going to have a nice group, Desire, who is going to headline that Labor Day program. Desire was at the Lions function the other day that many of us on the council attended. It's a fundraiser for the Lions Club for Camp Marcella. They were excellent. It was a fun time, and they raised a lot of money. Let's see, what else? All right, that's it. Thank you.
I'm just going to go in this circle here. Mr. Jeniak?
I think Councilmember Freelander's.
I'm going to go this way. It's easier for the public to watch.
Council President, I had an item of new business, so I'll address that now. During one of the budget meetings that we had a discussion with the fire department. They had requested a line item for training for 9 new members that they have. I believe it was budgeted at about $1,000. It was a
No, I think it was 10. They requested 11, and they were budgeted 10,000. They were looking for a 5,000 increase.
So my understanding was that it was 1,000, and they were looking for 5,000 as the number.
What page do you want?
I flagged it in the book that's there before the meeting. Yeah, please correct me if that's not correct.
Is this it?
There should be a flag there. It says Fire Department. It's the first.
Yeah, you're hold on a second.
I believe it was account 42 in the Fire Department budget.
It was, and what was expended through 2018 was $10,777.50. They requested 11,000. The administration cut it down to 10,000. And then Deputy Chief Ungaro and Chief Russo came and made a request because they were having, I think, 9 members, Mrs. Seeger?
That's what my notes said.
They were asking for an additional 5,000.
They were, but they have 9. The reason being is they had 9 members.
They had new employees.
And I think they're going to go into training volunteers.
Yes.
They had training maybe in August. I think is what they were talking about.
I don't know the date.
So because of the costs and whatnot, it was a $5,000 increase that they were requesting.
Right, and they're not employees, they are volunteers in our fire department, and the fire department has a very difficult time in recruiting historically. Numbers have been down, and I think we should be supporting our volunteer firefighters and EMS. So I would like to make a motion tonight to increase that account number 42 in the line item in the fire department budget to add the $5,000 that they came to us and asked for.
Mrs. Palmieri, you got that?
I got it.
Did I get that account correct?
Yeah, it's 042, and the main account is 01-25265.
That is fire. 265 is fire.
Correct.
I'm not certain if 042 is
I have 042 as education.
education. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. And the motion is to increase it by 5,000.
Yes,
The recommended to an additional 5,000.
Yeah, the way that the request from the fire department and the administration had cut the fire department prior in this budget was like almost 35,000.
We only cut it at
325,000 in capital. So we were just trying to increase something to offset those reductions.
So just to confirm, the administration recommended 10, and we're going to increase it to 15.
Correct.
Correct. Do I have a motion?
So the motion, Council President, for those who didn't hear it, is to increase fire department budget line item account number 42 by $5,000 to a total of $15,000.
Second.
Got it? Okay. Is it a roll?
Discussion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just have a copy of that real quick, and I'll have my budget in front of me? I just wanted to see that real quick.
Guys, that's to Ms. Seeger. Would you have any idea where you would get that 5,000 from to make up for that? Or?
Well, maybe from some of the cuts they made already. We'll have to
Okay.
look at it.
Yeah,
Mrs.
yeah.
Palmieri will look at it.
Mr. Jackson, we're increasing the line item, so the budget is going up by that $5,000.
No, I know.
The administration doesn't have to move that, unless you're asking instead for the administration to find a cut elsewhere to pay for this.
No, I got it. No,
But that
I'm
would be
asking
second.
how she's going to fund it, yeah.
No, she's not. We're funding it.
Okay.
We're
We'll
funding it
just-
by
they'll just
increasing the
raise it.
budget by that dollar amount.
That's fine.
We can,
Okay.
after, if we take a vote on this and this is successful, we could cut somewhere else to pay for it, or we could ask the administration to suggest that.
Okay.
But that wasn't the goal. My
Okay,
goal was,
got it.
we had the meeting, we had the request, we got the information we asked for, and so that's why I'm making.
That makes sense, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, or just, no? Sorry, do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Freelander,
Yes on the training.
Councilmember Jednak,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. 8 yeses, motion carries. Is there anything else you need from us, Ms. Palmieri, for that?
That's it,
No?
thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
Is that all you have for your report?
That was it, thank you.
Council Vice President?
No.
No report? Mr. Palumbo? Mr. Jackson?
Just that I attended the dance with Mr. Quinn. It was a great time. So the Lions Club did a great job organizing. It's a great fundraiser.
Is that it? Mr. Sackett?
Do you have any pictures from that dance?
My wife
A couple of quick things. I was at the Rockaway Chamber of Commerce meeting last Friday, 22nd, and a lot of local businesses are there, and they're looking forward to Rockaway Township Day, and a lot of them applied to be a vendor for that, so I'm glad to see that. Next Citizen Rec meeting is Tuesday, April 2nd, 7:15 here. The Easter Festival is at Copeland, April 6th, 10 a.m. Also, the Rockaway Township is having a municipal building open house, April 9th, here, 5 to 7. It's before our next council meeting, so come on down a little early, and maybe Dave will give you a little tour. And that's it, thank you.
Councilman Sackett, the municipal open house, is that something that there are flyers out for?
We had gotten an email that posted it out a little bit. I don't know, did you guys print any flyers or
We
anything?
have them right here,
Okay, Dave has flyers right
Thank you.
there.
and everybody was emailed. It's on the website and Facebook.
I'll pass these out.
Mr. Freelander? I'm sorry, John, is that it?
That's it, thank you.
A couple quick things. The library had his meeting. They were going through they're going to be building a quiet room
Upstairs, yeah.
upstairs. Everything was approved. They're just finishing up the final touches, and they'll be putting up, a quiet, well, you'd be surprised, isn't it? But they're going ahead with that. Everybody knows Library Day, Cinco de Mayo. They're planning that now. And also, Monday night, April 1st, 175th
Yes,
anniversary.
you got me.
Huh?
You stole my thunder.
Oh, what a shame. Historical Society's having their meeting in the municipal building, in this room. Come on down. 175 years.
Actually,
You're younger than that.
Manny, were you here 175 years ago?
Nah.
Okay, thank you.
that's it. Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that. I mean, actually, April 8th is our anniversary date of the 175th year from 1844 that they had on that. Also, on April 6th, the same thing that Councilman Sackett, I believe Hibernia is having their fishing contest. And I'm not sure, is Mount Hope having theirs as well?
They do it every year.
It's usually at both, at the same time at both locations.
What is it, April 6th?
It's, the last time they had it was on both days, same day. But I do know that I believe April 6th is Company 1 is having their opening day that's on there. Also, one thing that the mayor and I have in common is the opioid crisis that we're talking about. I don't know if you had read that they've charged 2 people in different municipalities, one in Rockaway Borough, for the death of selling opioids to somebody who had overdosed, which was a prior Rockaway resident, unfortunately, of the one, and the other one is in Jefferson. So a shout out to the prosecutor's office for it, and I hope they hold those people accountable for what they do. And that's it, as far as my reports go. Mr. Mayor?
President Kelly, are we sure that April 6th is the fishing?
It's the Easter day, April 6th.
Yeah, we had that last time, though. It was the same thing. Yeah, somebody at the,
I don't know offhand. That's
you could go right on the website. I think their Facebook real quick, Mrs. Seeger.
And the fishing event is usually like at the crack of dawn.
But they've always had it. And like I said, Mount Hope had it at the same time as Hibernia and the Easter event as well.
It's like literally 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it starts, the bell goes off.
Yeah.
But it's a great breakfast that they do. It's a great thing. Mr. Mayor?
Good, everybody done?
Yeah, they are.
I have one thing to say. I put a proclamation up online. April is going to be designated as Autism Awareness Month, and I just wanted everyone to keep that in mind for all the people that are affected by that. That's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Seeger?
Yes? Oh, no report, thank you.
Mrs. Palmieri?
No report, thank you.
Mrs. Ferrante?
No report.
Mr. Dyer?
I just have some flyers I can pass out in regards to inviting everybody on April 9th of the open house. So I'll pass them out. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, administration, we're going to take just a little bit of a break, maybe like a 3-minute break before we go into closed session.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we'll see who stays.
Could we make a motion to go into closed session? Make a
We're gonna go
motion.
into closed session, we're taking another break before we go into closed session. Just a 3-minute break.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Mr. Yachafano suggested that the closed session resolution be read in full. There are certain, there are certain bits of information that we need to fill in the resolution.
Yeah, I was
before
going
we
to do
can
that.
adopt it.
Yeah. Oh, it's the same one I have here, I'm sorry. Okay, everybody ready?
Council President, if the public and all of us have a copy, isn't it simply a matter of filling in the blanks, letting everyone know what that is, rather than reading this 2-page document into the record?
I'm sorry?
Couldn't we simply say what the blanks are that we're going to fill in here? And
You know what? Right now, I don't think I'm going to, it's going to take me more time talking to you about it than just to read this thing, so I'm just going to do it this way. We have Resolution R19-65. It's a resolution authorizing an executive closed session in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6 ET sequence to discuss litigation Schmidt and Hollenbach versus Rockaway Township, docket number C-131-18. Whereas the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act generally requires that meetings to be open to the public, and whereas the Open Public Meeting Act further provides that a public body may exclude the public from a portion of the meeting at which the public body discusses items emanating in the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-12B, which items are recognized as requiring confidentiality, and whereas it is necessary and appropriate for the Rockaway Township Council to discuss certain matters in a meeting not open to the public consistent with NJSA 10:4-12B. Now, therefore, being it resolved by the Township Council of Rockaway Township, Morris County, New Jersey as follows. The Rockaway Township Council shall immediately hold an executive session from which the public shall be excluded. 2, the general nature of the subject discussed at said executive session shall be the litigation entitled Schmidt and Hollenbach versus Rockaway Township Docket C 131-18. The minutes of the executive session shall be made available for disclosure to the public consistent with NJSA 10:4-13. Items which are the subject of closed session discussion are resolved and reason for confidentiality no longer exists at present is anticipated to be approximately, are we sure we want to say only 45 days?
You know, it provides for an extension if it's necessary. I mean, that takes us past the appeal period.
Well, as you stated before, that the appeal can always be extended, and do you want to stick with 45 days?
For now, the council can move later if it feels it needs to add additional time to it.
Would it have an issue if we were to say 90 days as a safeguard?
But you're past the time limit recommended by Judge Minkowitz.
What time frame with Judge Minkowitz?
When he's talking about minutes, I thought he was talking about 30 to 60 days.
I was under the inclination that it might have been regular minutes rather than just closed session minutes. He didn't identify that, but.
No, minutes are minutes as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned.
Anticipated to be approximately 45 days. 'Cause he even said the minutes to be prepared within 30 to 90 days.
Closed session minutes can't be released to the public until the matter's resolved regardless. So if the issue is still continuing after 45 days, they can't be released to the public until that matter is
But
resolved.
we should have that built in, and then you can add the supplement, which is the way we wrote it. Just keep reading.
Okay, but it doesn't state that under 10:4-13. In the event that reasons for confidentiality exist beyond 45 days, the public will advise appropriately. It is anticipated that the council shall be in closed session on a stated matter for 30 minutes. In the event that closed session must extend beyond 30 minutes, the council will recess to closed session and the public will be advised of the estimated time required to complete the closed session or whether the closed session will be continued at a subsequent council meeting. Following the closed session, council may take action on a matter in which the subject of the closed session. It is hereby certified that it's a true copy of a resolution adopted by the Township Council of the Township of Rockaway on March 26, 2019. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Quinn. Can you do the roll?
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Judenak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. 8 yeses, motion carries. We're going to go into the small room so we don't disrupt the members of the public here in the camera for Mr. Abed. I did say that, yeah. I mean, I've said it anyway, so. He's left. There's nothing else, right? I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All ayes?
Aye.
Yes. Motion adjourned.
What a waste of paper.